Hello, and welcome. Tonight or whenever you've chosen to press play, invite you into a journey that may seem quiet at first, even unremarkable. But as the minutes pass and the ideas begin to build, you may come to realize this is no ordinary self-help book. This is a book about invisible forces. Forces so small, so seemingly trivial, they often pass beneath our awareness, yet they shape everything. Our identity, our days, our future. This is Atomic Habits, written by James Clear, a thinker, writer, and strategist whose life was quietly transformed not by grand resolutions, but by a slow, intentional accumulation of effort, by habits. And that's the journey we're beginning together now. Imagine for a moment that you're watching a block of ice. It's been sitting in a freezing room. Temperature is slowly rising. Still, nothing happens. 25 degrees, 26, 27. Still, nothing. 29, 30, and then 32. Suddenly a drop of water appears, not because of that moment alone, but because of all the silent effort that came before it. That's the power of compound growth. And that's the philosophy behind Atomic Habits. What is an atomic habit? The word atomic might sound explosive, but that's not the meaning we're after here. Think about atoms, the smallest possible unit of matter, tiny, foundational, an atomic habit. Then is a small behavior, a daily decision that may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time becomes the building block of a new identity. This book is not about massive overnight transformation. It's not about motivation hacks or 5 a.m. routines. It's about changing who you believe you are, one small action at a time. James Clear writes, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." And that idea is quietly revolutionary, because we've been told that setting big goals is what leads to success. But if systems don't support that goal, you fall every time. The goal to write a novel means nothing without the daily habit of writing. Dream of running a marathon fades fast if the system encourages comfort, not discipline. This book isn't about doing more. It's about doing better, smaller, wiser, smarter. And that's where James Clear's story begins. A story of recovery and revelation. Years before he became a world-renowned author, James Clear was just a teenager. He was standing on a baseball field, like he had hundreds of times before. But one swing changed everything. A bat, slipping from a teammate's hand, struck him directly in the face. The damage was catastrophic. Shattered bones, a broken nose, dislodged eyes, a coma, and long months of painful recovery. His dreams of becoming a pro athlete? Gone. His future? Uncertain. But in that moment of devastation, something surprising took root. James began to rebuild, not just his body, but his life through tiny intentional habits. He didn't set massive goals. He didn't try to reclaim everything at once, simply focused on showing up, consistently training a little each day, studying, reading, sleeping early, practicing self-control, slowly creating order out of chaos. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't fast, but it worked. Years later, that quiet dedication would form the basis of a powerful insight. Small habits, when repeated consistently, compound into identity. He became the type of person who was disciplined, focused, resilient, not because he willed himself to be, but because his systems, his habits supported that version of himself. The 4 laws of behavior change in Atomic Habits. Clear distills the psychology of behavior into a clear, practical framework. This is the heart of the book. The 4 laws of behavior change: make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. These laws map directly to how habits are formed in the brain through cues, cravings, responses, and rewards. And by understanding them, you can start reshaping your environment, your routines, and your identity. For example, want to read more books? Leave one on your pillow every morning. Want to enjoy working out? Pair it with music you love. Want to eat healthier? Prep meals ahead. Want to stay consistent? Track it with a calendar streak. Simple, yes, but powerful. And this framework works in reverse, TF. You want to break a bad habit? Invert each law. Make it invisible. Make it unattractive. Make it difficult. Make it unsatisfying. What you can expect from this journey as we walk through this book. Chapter by chapter, you'll notice something. We're not rushing. This isn't a quick fix. This is a journey of understanding. In each chapter, we'll explore the psychology, stories, and strategies behind real behavior change. You'll meet characters from history, sports, science, and everyday life who use tiny atomic habits to shift the course of their lives. You'll learn about the science of dopamine, the role of environment, and how habits are tied to your sense of identity. Most importantly, you'll begin to see how small decisions can shape who you are becoming. Because in the end, Atomic Habits is not a book about productivity. It's a book about possibility. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't just hope for change, but lives it, one small, deliberate step at a time. So take a deep breath, let go of the pressure to fix everything, and come with me as we explore a quieter path to greatness. One habit, one choice, one day at a time. Welcome to Atomic Habits. Chapter 1. The Surprising Power of Atomic Habits. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt frustrated about your progress? You were trying to build a new habit, maybe working out, writing more, saving money, and despite your consistent efforts, it felt like nothing was changing. You were showing up and doing the work, but still, no results. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. James Clear opens Atomic Habits with a powerful truth that most people don't want to hear but absolutely need to understand. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. That idea is the heartbeat of Chapter 1. It's the reason this book exists. Once you fully grasp it, you'll stop chasing instant breakthroughs. Instead, begin building quiet revolutions. To make this idea stick, Clear uses a brilliant metaphor. The ice cube. Imagine a room chilled to 25 degrees Fahrenheit. There's an ice cube sitting on a table. The temperature begins to rise 26, 27, 28, and still, nothing happens. The ice remains frozen. 29, 30, and even 31. There's no change. At 32, the ice starts to melt. The shift wasn't magical or sudden. It was the result of all the degrees that came before. That's how habits work. Your small actions might seem pointless or invisible, but they aren't wasted. They're stored energy, a series of quiet votes cast for the person you want to become. Eventually, if you stay consistent, the breakthrough happens. This process is what Clear calls the plateau of latent potential. It's that long, invisible stretch between effort and results, the valley where most people give up. You might go to the gym for a month and see no difference. You journal or meditate and still feel anxious.
You write daily?
And your work still feels awkward, so you quit. Not because the method failed, but because you gave up too early, during the phase where progress was silently building beneath the surface. Clear reminds us, when you finally break through the plateau of latent potential, people will call it an overnight success. But you know it's the result of all those quiet days you showed up. When it didn't, T seemed to matter. That's why this chapter isn't motivational fluff, it's a quiet awakening. Here's another surprising insight. Goals don't work the way we think they do. Everyone wants to succeed. The athlete wants gold. The entrepreneur wants a thriving business. The writer wants to publish a bestseller. The student wants top grades. Goals are universal, but results rare. Why? Because goals don't determine successes, do. James Clear writes, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." It's a simple but profound distinction. Let's unpack that. A goal is the outcome you want. System is the set of habits and processes that lead to that result. If you're a runner, your goal might be to run a marathon. Your system is your training schedule. If you're a musician, your goal is to master an instrument. Your system is your daily practice. Want to be more present with family? The system could be your phone habits or how you block your time. The truth is, goals can actually get in the way. Why? Because winners and losers often have the same goals. What separates them is the system. Also, achieving a goal is just a temporary change. For example, losing 20 pounds means nothing if your system leads you to gain it back. Goals restrict happiness, we tell ourselves. Once I achieve this, then I'll be happy. But if we embrace systems, we can find joy in the process. Most importantly, goals are at odds with long-term growth. Once the goal is achieved, what keeps you going? Without systems, progress collapses. That's Clear encourages us to stop obsessing over results and start falling in love with the process. Now we arrive at one of the most powerful ideas in the entire book. The real purpose of habits is identity change. Habits aren't about what you achieve, they're about who you become. Think about this. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Wake up early? It's a vote for being disciplined. Read daily. Vote for being a lifelong learner. Leave your phone during dinner? A vote for being present with loved ones? This is how identities are shaped, not through a grand transformation, but through thousands of small, silent votes that accumulate over time. Clear also emphasizes that habit change isn't about motivation, it's about mechanics. It's your environment, your triggers, your friction, your routines. According to behavioral psychology, habits follow a four-step loop. Cue, craving, response, and reward. In later chapters, Clear dives deeper into how we can design each step. But for now, it's enough to know this. Habits are not destiny. They're designable. To end the chapter, Clear returns to the central theme. Why small changes matter so much. A single tiny habit may seem meaningless in the moment, but repeated day after day, week after week, it becomes powerful. Imagine improving by just 1% each day. Over a year, you won't be twice as good. You'll be 37 times better. That's not fantasy, it's simple math. But the reverse is true too. If you slip by 1% each day, your skills and focus erode over time. That's why small habits are never neutral. They're always moving you toward something. So as chapter 1 closes, we left with a quiet urgency. Your outcomes are a lagging measure of your habits. Your weight reflects your eating habits. Your clutter reflects your organizing habits. Your knowledge reflects your reading habits. If you want different results, don't chase the outcomes change, the habits that precede them. And now, we stand at the threshold of transformation. You've seen the invisible power of habits. You've learned that massive change isn't built on sudden effort but steady, silent practice. And you've begun to understand what James Clear ultimately wants for you. Not just better productivity, not quicker wins, but a quiet, consistent alignment between who you are and who you want to become. Welcome to the path of atomic habits. It's not explosive, but unstoppable. One small change at a time. Chapter 2. How your habits shape your identity. Let me tell you something most people never realize about change. We often assume that if we want to transform our lives, the first step is to change our behavior. So we make promises to ourselves. I'm going to work out more. I'll wake up early. I'll quit smoking. Or I'll stop procrastinating. We try, we struggle, and despite our efforts, we frequently relapse. The reason for this failure lies deeper than the surface actions. James Clear offers a radically different insight into why lasting change is so difficult. According to him, real transformation doesn't begin with behavior, it begins with beliefs. In other words, lasting change comes from changing who you believe you are. To understand this, imagine 3 concentric circles, much like the rings of a tree. The outermost layer is focused on outcomes, what you get, like losing weight, writing a book, or running a marathon. The second layer is about processes, what you do, such as going to the gym, writing daily, or training weekly. The innermost and most powerful layer is identity, what you believe about yourself. I am a healthy person. I'm a writer. I'm an athlete. Most people work from the outside in. They start with goals, attempt to change behaviors, and hope that eventually their sense of self will change. But Clear flips this model entirely. It asserts that true behavior change is identity change. If you believe you're a smoker trying to quit, relapse is likely because your self-image hasn't changed. Similarly, if you see yourself as a procrastinator who occasionally gets things done, you'll keep falling into the same patterns. But when your identity shifts, when you truly believe I'm not a smoker, I'm a focused person, or I'm a runner, the behavior begins to follow naturally. So where does identity come from? You weren't born thinking you're lazy or undisciplined. These beliefs came from your past experiences, usually small, repeated ones. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you are becoming. Write 1 sentence, you're a writer. Practice 1 chord, you're a guitarist. Meditate for 1 minute, you're someone who values presence. No single action will transform your identity, but every consistent act reinforces it. As James Clear puts it, your habits shape your identity, and your identity shapes your habits. This forms a powerful feedback loop where identity drives habits, and habits reinforce identity. To bring this concept down to earth, consider two people trying to quit smoking. When offered a cigarette, the first says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit," while the second replies, "No thanks, I don't smoke." The first still identifies as a smoker resisting temptation. Second has already embraced a new identity. That's the difference between outcome-based and identity-based habits. When your habits align with your identity, there's no inner conflict. You're not resisting your old self, you're living your new one. James Clear offers a simple two-step process for building identity-based habits. First, decide the kind of person you want to be. Second, prove it to yourself with small wins. If you want to be the kind of person who moves every day, start with a walk or a stretch. If you want to prioritize mental clarity, meditate for 60 seconds, turn off notifications, or journal one line. The key is consistency, not perfection. You don't have to run 5 miles to be a runner. You just have to run regularly, even a little, because identity isn't declared, it's earned through action. Every small win is a brick in the foundation of your future self. This approach also solves a deeper issue: motivation. When your actions stem from identity, you don't wake up debating with yourself. You're not asking, "Should I go to the gym today?" You simply know, "I'm the kind of person who doesn't skip workouts." This internal alignment eliminates friction. Your actions become expressions of your beliefs, not battles against your impulses. As Clear reminds us, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. But belief is fragile, especially when shaped by past failures. Many people want to build better habits, but deep down don't believe they can. They carry old stories. "I've never been disciplined. I always fall off track. I'm just not that kind of person." These are not truths. They're past-based narratives. The reality is, you're not bound by your past. You're not doomed to repeat it. You simply haven't cast enough votes for a new version of yourself. Every repeated action is proof. Over time, this proof becomes belief, and that belief becomes identity. James Clear encourages us to ask a powerful question: who is the type of person that could get the outcome I want? Instead of focusing solely on results, focus on becoming the kind of person who naturally achieves those results. If you want to lose weight, become someone who doesn't miss workouts. If you want to write a book, become someone who writes every day. If you want to be present with family, become someone who silences distractions at home. It's not about being perfect. It's about creating alignment between your actions and your ideal self. This is where psychology adds something profound, what researchers call self-signaling. We interpret our own actions as evidence of who we are. When you show up, even on the hard days, and follow through even when no one is watching, you begin to believe, "I'm that kind of person." Once your identity shifts, your brain wants to stay consistent with that belief. You won't want to betray your new self-image. This creates a powerful internal compass, one that continues guiding you even when motivation fades. Ultimately, James Clear doesn't just teach how to hack habits. He teaches how to become someone new, quietly, deliberately, through repeated actions. As this chapter closes, remember, habits aren't just tools for productivity. They are mirrors reflecting your identity. Every small habit is a vote for the person you want to be. You don't need to start big. You just need to start intentionally. Because when your identity is the foundation, your daily actions align with your future self, change no longer feels like forcing something unnatural. It feels like coming home. Chapter 3. How to build better habits in 4 simple steps. Think about a habit you have. Maybe it's brushing your teeth, checking your phone, reaching for coffee, or glancing at your reflection before walking out the door. These actions often happen without conscious thought. You don't pause to decide to simply respond. And that's where James Clear introduces something remarkable. Whether you realize it or not, every habit, good or bad, follows the same neurological pattern. This chapter is about decoding that invisible script and using it to your advantage. Because when you understand how habits work, you can learn to design them with intention and purpose. The habit loop. Decades of behavioral psychology, from Pavlov to Skinner, have uncovered a profound truth. Habits are not random. They follow a predictable loop consisting of 4 stages. Cue, the trigger that initiates the behavior. Craving, the motivational force or desire behind it. Response: the behavior you perform. Reward: the benefit that tells your brain, do this again. Here's a simple example to illustrate. You walk into a dark room you want to see. You flip the light switch. The room lights up. Your brain recognizes the success of the action and stores it, so next time, it becomes automatic. Why this loop matters: understanding this loop is powerful because it gives you control. If you want to build a good habit, you need to create a clear cue, attach it to a strong craving, make the response easy, and ensure the reward feels satisfying. If you want to break a bad habit, you reverse the process, make the cue invisible, the craving unattractive, the response difficult, and the reward unsatisfying. But James Clear takes this even further by transforming this neurological pattern into a practical tool called the 4 Laws of Behavior Change, a framework that helps anyone trying to form or break a habit. The 4 laws of behavior change here are the 4 laws, each corresponding to a stage in the habit loop. Make it obvious you can't act on what you don't notice. Visibility is the first step. Want to go to the gym? Lay out your clothes the night before? Want to drink more water? Keep a bottle where you can see it. Make it attractive. We're drawn to things that are appealing. Pair your habit with something enjoyable like listening to your favorite playlist while working out or enjoying a treat after completing a task. Make it easy. Simplicity wins. Reduce the friction. Start small. Want to write a book? Start with 1 sentence. Want to cook healthy? Prep just 1 ingredient. Momentum matters more than intensity at the beginning. Make it satisfying. Your brain needs to feel good about the action. Immediate rewards reinforce behavior. Track your progress visibly or reward yourself emotionally. Whatever helps your brain associate the habit with a positive outcome. Why this works. The science behind the simplicity this method works because it aligns with how the brain is wired. Your brain loves patterns. It can repeat effortlessly. Reward signals release dopamine, reinforcing the loop and encouraging repetition. The more a behavior is repeated and rewarded, the more automatic it becomes. That's why Clear emphasizes systems over goals. A goal is a moment in time. A system is a continuous process. Habits are the invisible foundation of effective systems. The inverse. How to break a bad habit. To break a habit, simply invert the 4 laws. Make it invisible. Make it unattractive. Make it difficult. Make it unsatisfying. Want to stop mindless scrolling? Hide your phone or delete the app. Remind yourself of how tired and unproductive you feel afterward. Use blockers. Ask a friend to keep you accountable. This approach isn't about guilt, it's about reshaping your environment to support better decisions. Systems over willpower. Here's one of the most liberating truths from this chapter. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Goals give you direction. Systems make progress possible. And habits are what hold those systems together. Without understanding this structure, you're just guessing. With it, you're designing your future. Practical takeaway? Identity plus system equals transformation. Chapter 2, focused on identity, asking, who do I want to become? Chapter 3 gives you the system to get there by applying the 4 laws to your daily life. For example, if you want to become someone who writes every day, make it obvious. Put your notebook on your pillow. Make it attractive. Brew your favorite tea before writing. Make it easy. Start with just 1 sentence. Make it satisfying. Track your streak on a calendar or app. This isn't motivation, it's design. And that's the secret. Final thoughts. The real secret to better habits isn't willpower or discipline. It's not about talent or effort alone. It's about understanding the hidden pattern that your brain is already following and using that knowledge to your advantage. When you make habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, you remove resistance and create a structure that supports consistent action. You stop waiting for change and start building it, 1 small step at a time. Chapter 4. The Man Who Didn't Look Right. There's a moment in this chapter. Quiet. Almost casual, that lingers in your mind long after you've turned the page. James Clear opens with a story that, at first glance, appears unremarkable. A woman working in a hospital notices something off about a patient. There are no alarms. The monitors don't show anything unusual. All the data looks fine. She says something most others wouldn't. He just didn't look right. And that subtle, almost instinctive feeling saves the man's life. This phenomenon is called situational awareness, the ability to detect subtle changes in your environment and recognize patterns before they develop into problems. In high-stakes fields like medicine, it can be the difference between life and death. But situational awareness isn't only for emergency rooms and operating tables. In everyday life, it marks the boundary between living intentionally and drifting aimlessly. This chapter delves into that razor-thin edge awareness and why the ability to notice what is happening around and within you is the foundation of all meaningful habit change. Habits begin with awareness. One of the key truths about habits is that most of them operate beneath our conscious radar. We don't typically make a deliberate decision to open our phones and start scrolling. We don't set a plan to bite our nails or mindlessly check the fridge. These actions just happen, and that is the hidden danger of unconscious behavior. James Clear emphasizes a vital point here. You cannot change a habit that you're not even aware of. That's why he puts so much emphasis on developing self-awareness. Before you attempt to shift your habits, build a new routine, or pursue a better version of yourself, you must first see clearly what your current reality looks like. The Habit Scorecard, bringing the invisible to light to aid this process of self-discovery. Clear introduces a deceptively simple yet powerful tool, the Habit Scorecard. The instructions are straightforward. Write down every habit you typically perform in a day. Then label each one as positive, negative, or neutral. For example, wake up, drink water, skip breakfast, commute to work, read during lunch, watch YouTube for an hour, brush teeth, that's it. The goal here is not to pass judgment or shame yourself into change. The goal is simply to see yourself more clearly. This exercise allows you to become the observer of your own behavior rather than just the performer of it. And when you finally see the full picture, a powerful shift occurs. You stop blaming yourself in vague, unhelpful ways, telling yourself you're just lazy or undisciplined. Instead, you begin to notice systems. You might realize, oh, I always open TikTok after lunch, or I snack the most when I sit in the living room. These are not random, they are cues. Recognizing cues is the essential first step toward rewiring your habits. Awareness. The hidden superpower. Let's take a step back and reflect on this. Habits shape our lives, but our awareness shapes our habits. James Clear quotes Carl Jung, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That insight echoes through every part of this chapter. Many of the problems we face, procrastination, distraction, overeating, poor sleep, aren't actually failures of discipline or motivation. They're failures of awareness. Awareness is like a form of pattern recognition. And once you recognize a pattern, you can redesign it. How identity ties into awareness. Back in Chapter 2, Clear introduced the concept that true, lasting habit change is tied to identity. In this chapter, that idea takes on deeper meaning. Let's say you've become aware of a habit loop you follow almost every night. Netflix gives snacks, gives scrolling, gives guilt. Most people try to escape this loop through sheer willpower by deleting apps, throwing out the snacks, or making promises to themselves. But Clear offers a more effective approach. Don't just change the behavior. Change your awareness of what the behavior does for you and what it says about your identity. Ask yourself, what is this loop doing for me? What emotions am I feeling when I start it? Who do I believe I am in this moment? Maybe that loop soothes your anxiety. Maybe it numbs feelings of loneliness. Maybe it reinforces a quiet belief that you always give in or never follow through. Suddenly, what looked like a simple bad habit reveals itself as a story you've been telling about who you are. Because habits are not only actions, they are also reflections of identity. And now, we circle back to the story that opened this chapter. The nurse who saved her patient did so not because of data or machines, but because she had developed a deep awareness. She had absorbed countless patterns over the years and sharpened her senses to the point that she felt when something was wrong. Even if she couldn't immediately explain why, that's the level of awareness we're working toward. It doesn't happen in a day. It builds slowly through repeated small acts of noticing. The practical tool. Implementation intention. Once you've become aware of a habit you want to change, the next step is to make that habit intentional. This is where Clear introduces one of the most effective strategies in behavioral psychology: implementation intentions. Instead of vaguely hoping to change, you set a concrete plan using this formula. I will behave at time in location. Examples: I will do 10 push-ups at 7:30 a.m. in my bedroom. I will write for 15 minutes at 8 p.m. at my desk. It may sound overly simple, but the data is overwhelmingly clear. People who make specific scheduled plans are dramatically more likely to follow through. Why is that? Because vague intentions get steamrolled by the momentum of daily life. Clear, deliberate plans give shape to our goals. Take the awareness we've developed and channel it into action. Implementation intentions are how awareness becomes transformation. From awareness to accountability. As the chapter draws to a close, there's a subtle yet powerful shift in tone. Once you start seeing your habits clearly, once you name them and plan around them, your entire environment begins to evolve. Your sense of self begins to shift. You are no longer simply reacting to the world. You are designing your life. This isn't about fighting old habits with brute force. It's about replacing confusion with clarity. And that clarity, James Clear reminds us, is what often separates those who succeed from those who don't. So take a moment as you finish this chapter. Breathe. Reflect. Ask yourself, what are your current habits telling you about your identity? Which ones support the person you want to become? Which ones are holding you back? Perhaps most importantly, can you see yourself clearly enough to begin again this time, intentionally? Because awareness is not flashy. It doesn't scream for attention. But in the quiet, steady way that truly matters, it shapes everything. Chapter 5. The best way to start a new habit: you wake up and reach for your toothbrush. After your shower, you naturally turn toward the kitchen. Following your morning coffee, you might instinctively check your phone. These moments are not random, they're anchors, embedded rhythms in your day that happen almost without conscious thought. What James Clear highlights in this chapter is just how powerful these anchors truly are. With a small shift in design, they can serve as the foundation for any new habit you wish to adopt. This chapter introduces the concept of habit stacking, a method so straightforward and effective that it becomes the silent structure behind lasting personal change. The power of anchoring. Why when matters more than what? Clear begins by pointing out a critical misunderstanding. Most people believe they lack motivation, but in reality, they lack clarity. We often declare our intentions. I want to read more. I want to meditate. I want to eat healthier. But we rarely define when and where these habits will take place. Without specific anchors in time and space, these intentions float unmoored and eventually disappear. This is where the concepts of implementation, intentions, and habit stacking prove essential. Rather than building a habit from nothing, you attach it to something you already do. It's not about inventing a new routine, but about fitting a new action into the structure that already exists, like placing a final piece in a puzzle. Habit stacking, the formula that builds behavior. Clear introduces a powerful yet simple formula. After current habit, I will new habit. That's the entire strategy. Consider the following examples. After I pour my cup of coffee in the morning, I will meditate for 1 minute. After I take off my work shoes, I will immediately change into workout clothes. After I brush my teeth, I will write down one thing I'm grateful for. After I sit down to dinner, I will say one kind thing to my partner. This method works because your brain already recognizes and trusts the original cue. You've performed these anchor behaviors hundreds of times. Now, by sliding a new behavior into the sequence, the brain begins to adopt it automatically. Over time, this pairing becomes second nature, which is the essence of habit formation. Reliable cues triggering consistent actions. Why timing and location matter more than willpower. Research cited by Clear emphasizes that the specificity of a cue greatly increases the likelihood that a habit will stick. Compare these two statements. I'll meditate every day versus I'll meditate for 1 minute after I pour my morning coffee at 7 a.m. In the kitchen, the latter is far more actionable. It's not about relying on motivation. It's about reducing friction. When the steps are clear and flow smoothly, your brain will follow through with minimal resistance. This isn't about forcing change. It's about designing it into your life. How to choose the right anchor habit. Not every existing habit is a strong anchor. Some are inconsistent, lack a defined time or place, or are emotionally draining. To build a reliable habit stack, your base habit should be stable, occur in a consistent location, and be emotionally neutral or positive. Examples of ideal anchor habits include waking up, brushing your teeth, making coffee, taking a shower, closing your laptop, turning off the TV, and getting into bed. Once you've identified a strong anchor, simply pair the new habit directly after it. The neuroscience of cues and routine. Beneath the surface, something fascinating is happening in your brain. Every time you respond to a cue with a repeated action, your brain begins forming a chunk of behavior and neural loop that ties the cue to the action. With each repetition, the connection strengthens, and the behavior becomes more automatic. Eventually, the cue alone will trigger the habit. This is how a deliberate choice becomes second nature, requiring less mental energy. Habit stacking accelerates this process by using trusted cues to forge these connections quickly and reliably. Habit stacks and identity. This method also connects deeply with the concept of identity-based habits introduced earlier in the book. Every habit you perform is a vote for the kind of person you want to become. If you stack reading after making coffee, journaling after brushing your teeth, or doing push-ups after turning off your work laptop, you're reinforcing identities like, I'm a reader, I'm mindful, or I take care of my health. Habit stacking, then, becomes more than a behavioral tool. It becomes a daily narrative about who you are becoming. Experimenting with your stack. A realistic approach. Clear advises starting small. Don't attempt to stack 10 habits at once. Begin with one habit so small it almost feels silly. One push-up, one page, one breath. Once that small stack becomes stable, you can expand. For example, a larger chain might look like this. After I pour my coffee, I will meditate. After I meditate, I will write in my gratitude journal. After I journal, I will open my laptop and begin my most important task. This is a habit chain, a sequence that builds momentum through your day. But the effectiveness of the chain depends on the strength of the first link. Start small. Start anchored. Stacking for removal. Using the same technique in reverse, although the chapter primarily focuses on building new habits. The same method can be used to break undesirable ones. If you tend to scroll social media after breakfast, try inserting a positive replacement. After I finish breakfast, I will take a 5-minute walk. This disrupts the existing cue-response loop and replaces it with a healthier alternative. Over time, the craving diminishes as the brain no longer associates the cue with the old behavior. Again, the strategy isn't about force, it's about thoughtful design. Final thoughts. You are what you repeat, as this chapter concludes. Claire emphasizes a central idea. You don't need more willpower, you need better systems. These systems begin with small, intentional, and well-placed cues. A new habit doesn't start with a massive decision. It starts with a simple, actionable formula. After this, I will that. This is how you shape your future, not with dramatic shifts, but with subtle, consistent anchors. So ask yourself, what can you stack today? What steady anchor already exists in your life that could carry a new behavior? Start there. Remember, it's not about intensity, it's about consistency. Because the true architecture of identity is built from tiny habits, stacked and repeated with purpose. Chapter 6. Motivation is overrated. Environment often matters more. You walk into a room. Without a thought, you flip on the light. You enter your kitchen and suddenly feel like snacking even. If you weren't hungry a second ago, you sit on the couch and without thinking, reach for the remote. That's not your motivation at work. That's your environment. And in this chapter, James Clear makes a case that can transform your habits not by changing you, but by changing what surrounds you. The myth of willpower. Let's start with a hard truth. Most of us overestimate motivation and underestimate design. Clear points out something most of us know deep down. We rarely choose habits in a vacuum. We respond to the environment around us. If the chocolate is on the counter, we eat it. If the phone is face up next to us, we check it. If the book is in the drawer, we forget it exists. Motivation fails when the environment works against us. But when the environment is designed for our habits, our success feels effortless. That's the shift Clear wants us to make. From how can I stay disciplined, to how can I design my space so that good habits are the default. The environment as a silent architect of behavior. Think about how a casino is laid out. There are no windows, no clocks. The lighting is soft, the sound is muffled, and the slot machines are placed at strategic intersections. Why? Because the environment has been engineered to keep you inside, disoriented, and playing. Now flip that idea. What if you engineered your surroundings, but for your benefit? What if your home, workspace, and daily routes were quietly nudging you toward better choices? You wouldn't need to fight temptation. You'd simply stop seeing it. Environment Design 101. Make cues obvious. Here's the first principle. Make the cues for your good habits obvious and visible. Want to practice guitar more? Keep the guitar on a stand in the center of the room, not in a case under the bed. Want to drink more water? Just put a full glass on your desk before you sit down to work. Want to eat healthier? Make fruit the first thing you see in the fridge. Put junk food in opaque containers and hide it at the back. This isn't about discipline. It's about visibility. If the cue is out of sight, it's out of mind. If it's in sight, it becomes a silent invitation. The brain's association with space clearly points to a fascinating fact about how our brains work. We don't just associate behaviors with time. We associate them with places. For example, you may feel focused at your work desk. You may feel sleepy in your bedroom. You may feel hungry when you walk into the kitchen even if it's 10 minutes after dinner. These associations form because of contextual cues. The place becomes a trigger. So here's the practical takeaway. Assign specific spaces for specific habits. Read in a designated chair. Write at a clean, quiet desk. Meditate in a consistent corner. Eat only at the dining table. Never scroll in bed. When you split environments by intention, you reinforce the behavior in your brain. Each time you return to that space, your brain says, "Oh, we do this here." And the habit becomes easier. Redesigning existing spaces. What if you don't have an entire house to reconfigure? Clear's advice is refreshingly realistic. You don't need more space. You just need better cues. Here's how you can layer multiple environments in a single room. Use a different corner of the room for each activity. Rearrange your furniture to create physical boundaries. Change the lighting or scent for different tasks. Use objects to define the task. Headphones for focus. A cushion for meditation. A candle for reflection. Even slight tweaks like turning your chair to face a different direction can tell your brain this is a new mode. The clearer the boundary, the easier the habit. The inverse is also true. Remove the cues for bad habits. Just as you make good cues visible, you make bad cues invisible. This is the second pillar of environment design. It's easier to avoid temptation than to resist it. Claire offers practical examples. If you always check your phone during work, leave it in another room, or use a timed lockbox. If you binge TV at night, unplug the TV, or remove the batteries from the remote. Social media pulls you in, log out every time, or delete the app from your home screen. The idea is simple. Make the bad habits harder. Make the good ones frictionless. You don't need to overpower a bad habit. You just need to trip it up. Shape the room to shape the routine. Let's zoom out. Your home, your desk, your phone, they all send messages. They say, you relax here, you scroll here, you work here, you eat here. What if you re-scripted those messages? What if your environment became a quiet coach, whispering the right cues at the right time? Here's how to begin. Walk through your home or office. Ask, what habit is this space encouraging? Ask again, what habit could it be encouraging? Make one small change. Maybe that means putting your journal on top of your laptop, laying out workout clothes the night before, keeping only one tab open on your browser. You don't need a remodel. You just need a redesign of intention. Make each space serve a single purpose, one of Clear's strongest suggestions. Avoid mixing contexts. Don't eat at your desk. Don't work in bed. Don't scroll while you read. Why? Because mixed signals weaken your habits. When your brain can't distinguish a space's purpose, it becomes harder to stay focused and easier to fall back into passive behavior. So even if you live in a single room, create zones, a reading corner, a writing desk, a sleeping area. Let each one send a single, silent message. This is who you are, here. Your environment is always evolving, so should your design finally, Clear reminds us. Environment design isn't one and done. It's ongoing. Your needs change. Your routines change. Your life changes. So revisit your spaces regularly. Ask, is this space still serving the habit I want? What's distracting me here? What small change would make this easier? Remember, the design is never final. It evolves with you. Summary, Let the space do the work. Let us end with a recap of what you've learned in this chapter. Willpower is a poor long-term strategy. Environment is a quiet, consistent force. Cues drive behavior, so make the good ones obvious and the bad ones invisible. Assign each space a specific purpose to reinforce identity-based habits. Start small. One space, one tweak, one habit at a time. The question isn't, how do I stay disciplined? The better question is, how can I make it easier to do the right thing? And often, the answer isn't internal. It's right in front of you. As you move forward, consider, what is your environment saying to you? And what could it say if you rearranged it with purpose? Because your habits aren't just shaped by what's inside you, they're shaped by what surrounds you. Chapter 7. The Secret to Self-Control. We often admire people who appear to have extraordinary self-control. Whether it's the monk who can resist anger, the athlete who never misses a training session, or the friend who's immune to the allure of junk food. Social media, or late-night distractions, they seem to possess a kind of superhuman willpower. But James Clear challenges this traditional view. According to him, disciplined people are not inherently better at resisting temptation. They're just better at avoiding it. Let that idea settle for a moment. The truth is, most people who seem to have great willpower aren't constantly fighting urges. They've simply created a life where those temptations don't regularly arise. This, Clear argues, is the real and often misunderstood secret to self-control. The illusion of willpower. Consider this scenario. There's a plate of warm, inviting donuts on your kitchen counter. You walk past it 10 times a day, and each time you have to mentally tell yourself, don't eat one. That's what most of us think self-control looks like: repeated, deliberate acts of restraint. But this process is exhausting. Even if you manage to resist every time, each instance chips away at your mental energy just a little bit. Now imagine an alternative situation. The donuts aren't in the house at all. You don't see them, so you don't think about them. Suddenly, not eating a donut isn't a test of strength, it's a non-issue. Clear puts it simply. It's easier to practice self-restraint when you don't have to use it. Cue-driven behavior. Why temptation works on us. To truly understand why temptation affects us, we need to revisit the idea of the habit loop. Every habit begins with a cue, something that grabs your attention. Here's the fascinating part. You can't crave what you don't notice. You don't start craving cookies unless you see them. You don't feel the urge to scroll through your phone unless it buzzes or lights up. You don't feel the itch to shop unless you read in a store or scrolling through a shopping app. Cues are what trigger cravings, and those cravings then lead to action. That's why Clear insists that mastering temptation, ISNT, about building ironclad discipline, it, S about cutting off the cue before it can spark desire. Remove the cue, remove the temptation. James Clear tells the story of a man who lost over 100 pounds, not through harsh diets or extraordinary willpower, but by systematically removing the triggers that led to poor choices. This man stopped watching cable TV to avoid mindless late-night snacking. He left his phone in another room during meals to remain present and prevent boredom eating. He packed healthy lunches ahead of time so that when lunchtime came, junk food wasn't even an option. Each of these small, intentional changes removed a cue from his environment. He wasn't in a constant battle to resist. He had simply created an environment where there was nothing to resist. That's the key principle Clear promotes. Self-control is a short-term strategy. Environment design is a long-term one. The power of inaccessibility. There's a psychological concept called the 20-second rule, which suggests that if something is just 20 seconds harder to access, we tend to do it less. Conversely, if it's 20 seconds easier, we're more likely to do it. Slight delay or ease can be incredibly effective in shaping habits. If you want to curb a bad habit, make it inconvenient, make it less visible, make it even a little bit annoying to access. For example, unplug your TV and put the remote in a drawer. Delete tempting apps or move them to a hidden folder on your phone. Use app blockers or set timers to create a barrier before you can use certain apps. If you're trying to avoid impulse purchases, leave your wallet at home when passing by your favorite stores. The goal is to create just enough friction that your automatic behavior gets disrupted before it can turn into action. People with high self-control rarely use it. One of the most powerful revelations in this chapter is that people with high self-control actually spend less time in situations that test it. They don't succeed because they fight temptation better. They succeed because they avoid the fight altogether. They don't keep junk food in the house. They don't go to bars if they're trying to quit drinking. They don't charge their phones next to their beds. They leave them across the room or in another space entirely. They don't waste time engaging with toxic people. They simply cut them out of their lives. It's not that these people are stronger it's that they are more intentional about shaping their surroundings. Social environments matter to temptation isn't limited to physical triggers, it's also social. If you're surrounded by people who gossip, constantly scroll their phones, skip workouts, or overspend, you're much more likely to adopt those behaviors yourself. Clear reminds us that one of the most effective ways to build better habits is to join a culture where the behaviors you want to develop are the norm. Surround yourself with readers if you want to read more. Hang out with runners if you want to stay fit. Connect with creators if you want to build or make things. When your environment aligns with your goals, resisting temptation stops feeling like resistance. It starts feeling like you just going with the flow in a better direction. Design greater than discipline. So, what's the core message of Chapter 7? You don't need more willpower. You need better systems. You don't beat bad habits by gritting your teeth and trying harder. You beat them by removing the conditions in which they flourish. Clear leaves us with a liberating reminder. You don't have to be the victim of your environment. You can be the architect of it. Avoiding temptation isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You're not weak because you make things easier for yourself. You're smart because you've chosen a strategy that actually works. How to apply this chapter now? Let's break these insights down into practical steps. First, identify your cues. What triggers your worst habits? Is it a specific time of day, a certain place, a person, a sound, or a phone notification? Once you've identified them, work on removing or replacing those cues. Don't rely on raw resistance. Change what you see, who you're with, and where you spend your time. Next, use inconvenience to your advantage. Make your bad habits 20 seconds harder to access. Add friction wherever you can. Also, surround yourself with people who support your goals. Join communities that embody the behavior you want to adopt. Let social pressure work in your favor. Finally, celebrate avoidance as a strength. Every time you adjust your environment to sidestep a temptation, you're not just improving your behavior, you're reshaping your identity into someone who makes wise long-term choices. Final thoughts? We're often quick to blame ourselves when we fail at self-control, but perhaps we've just been playing the wrong game. James Clear doesn't ask us to be heroes, doesn't want us to spend our lives in a constant state of resistance. Instead, he offers a more peaceful, sustainable approach. Build a life where temptation fades into the background. Design your days not around struggle, but around flow. Let your decisions be smooth and effortless, because the obstacles are already out of the way. So the next time you admire someone's discipline, pause and ask yourself, are they really stronger than you? Or did they just make sure the donuts weren't in the house to begin with? You are not defined by your willpower. You are shaped by your environment. And the good news, you have the power to shape it, because the highest form of self-control is not needing it at all. Chapter 8. How to make a habit irresistible. The second law of behavior change. Make it attractive. Let's pause for a moment. Close your eyes and think of a habit you want to build. Maybe it's exercising daily, eating healthier, reading every night, or practicing gratitude. Now ask yourself, does that habit feel attractive? Or does it feel like a chore, a duty, something you should do, rather than something you want to do? James Clear points out a vital truth. The more attractive an opportunity, the more likely it is to become habit-forming. So what actually makes something attractive? Here's the thing, habits don't stick just because they're good for us. They stick because they're emotionally rewarding. They feel good. And for something to feel good, we need to understand how cravings work. Habits are not about the action. They're about the anticipation. This might surprise you. It's the anticipation of a reward, not the fulfillment of it, that gets us to act. Think about it. We don't actually crave the act of checking social media. We crave the feeling of connection, validation, and novelty that comes with it. We don't crave brushing our teeth. We crave the feeling of a clean, fresh mouth. We don't crave opening a workout app. We crave the feeling of energy, pride, or relief that comes afterward. Craving comes before action. It's the emotional part of our brain lighting up, whispering, "This will feel good." So, if you want to build better habits, you have to make them emotionally appealing before you even do them. That's where the magic starts. The role of dopamine. Let's dive into brain chemistry briefly. Dopamine is often called the pleasure chemical, but a more accurate term might be the anticipation chemical. When a cue promises a reward, your brain releases dopamine even before the reward actually arrives. For example, when you smell popcorn, hear your phone buzz, or walk into a gym blasting energizing music, your brain is already primed and releasing dopamine. The result? High dopamine levels create high motivation. On the flip side, low dopamine means no action. That's why building a habit isn't just about what you do, it's about how much you look forward to doing it. Anticipation is the fuel behind every habit engine, the secret tool. Temptation bundling. James Clear introduces a brilliant technique called temptation bundling. Based on research by behavioral economist Katie Milkman, the core idea is simple. Pair an action you want to do with an action you need to do. For example, only listen to your favorite podcast while exercising. Only watch Netflix while folding laundry. Only drink your favorite coffee after writing a journal entry. Only scroll through Instagram after completing 10 pages of reading. This works because you're reattaching an instant emotional reward, the thing you crave, to a long-term beneficial habit, the thing you're retrying to build. The habit becomes emotionally irresistible, not because the action has changed, but because your experience of it has. How culture shapes what we crave, but cravings don't just come from biology. They're deeply shaped by culture. Clear reminds us we tend to imitate the habits of three groups: the close, the many, and the powerful. Let's break this down. First, the close. We adopt behaviors from the people we see every day. If your partner meditates, you're more likely to start meditating. If your roommate eats clean, you'll find yourself reaching for healthier meals. Proximity breeds imitation. Then comes the many. Social proof is incredibly powerful. If everyone in your office takes afternoon walks, you'll probably want to join them. If all your friends use a budgeting app, your curiosity will kick in. We crave belonging even more than we crave discipline. Finally, we have the powerful. We mirror the habits of people we admire or aspire to, be fitness influencers, CEOs, spiritual teachers, authors. Their habits feel attractive not just because of results, but because those actions represent identity. So, if you want to build irresistible habits, place yourself inside a culture where those habits are the norm.
Ow.
Let the environment and people around you carry you forward. Make the habit the reward. James Clear emphasizes a beautiful idea. You can train yourself to crave the habit itself, not just the outcome. How do you do that? By making the experience emotionally rewarding and enjoyable. Track your progress. Visually use habit streaks, journals, or charts. Reward yourself immediately after completing the habit. Even small praise works wonders. Use affirming self-talk, like "I'm the kind of person who shows up." Keep the tone, light play music, add creativity, use small rituals to signal the habit. Over time, the habit itself becomes the reward, not because of external outcomes, but because it simply feels good to be the kind of person who does that thing. How to make any habit more attractive. James Clear gives us a simple yet powerful formula. Habits equals cue plus craving plus response plus reward. So, to make it attractive, your job is to focus on the craving layer. Here's how you do it. Use temptation bundling. Link something you want with something you need. Join a community. Let cultural norms do the heavy lifting for you. Create rituals. Add joy, humor, or music to the experience. Visualize the benefit. Remind yourself of the emotional state that follows the habit. Affirm your identity. Say aloud, "This is who I am now." These tweaks might seem small, but that's the point. Tiny shifts in emotion lead to massive long-term traction. Final thoughts. Make the emotion work for you. What this chapter ultimately teaches us. We don't act out of logic, we act out of emotion. Habits stick when they're emotionally magnetic. They don't feel like chores, but like rewards. You don't need more willpower, you need more desire. The best part is, you can engineer that desire. You can shape it through your environment, community, and emotional experience. So the next time you struggle to build a good habit, don't ask yourself how to be more disciplined. Ask instead, how can I make this feel good before it even happens? Because your brain doesn't care what's good for it. It only cares what feels good. And the beautiful truth, you can design that feeling. You can build that craving. And once you do, the habit will follow. Habits begin with emotion. Let yours begin with joy. Because when a habit becomes attractive, it becomes inevitable. Chapter 9. The role of family and friends in shaping your habits. When we think about changing our habits, we often imagine it as a deeply personal journey, a solo project that requires willpower, discipline, and private determination. It's something we believe happens within us, as an internal decision. But James Clear introduces a powerful perspective that challenges this assumption. He writes, "One of the deepest human desires is to belong. This desire to belong to a family, a group of friends, a team at work, or even an online community holds tremendous sway over how we behave. People around us, often without us even realizing it, influence our actions in profound ways. The truth is, you can set out to change your habits alone. You can make all the right plans and set clear goals. But if the people closest to you, the tribe you live, work, or socialize with aren't aligned with that goal, the gravitational pull of wanting to fit in can overpower even the strongest sense of motivation. This chapter is about recognizing and using that invisible force of social influence. It's about understanding how your relationships shape your behavior and how you can turn that force to your advantage. Think about your own habits for a moment. Now ask yourself, where did they come from? You might find that many of your daily routines aren't entirely your own creation. Maybe you drink the same kind of coffee your partner likes. Perhaps your workout habits soar. Lack of them mirror those of your closest friends. Your approach to money, whether you save, spend, or shop impulsively, might closely resemble that of your family or social circle. Even the way you speak, dress, and behave is likely influenced by the people you spend the most time with. This isn't just coincidence. It's a product of conformity. James Clear explains, when changing your habits means challenging the tribe, change is unattractive. When changing your habits means fitting in with the tribe, change is very attractive. This is a vital insight. We're social creatures, and we naturally imitate the behaviors of those we admire, love, or depend on. So a smart question to ask ourselves is, how can we find a tribe where the behavior we desire is considered normal? Clear outlines 3 layers of imitation, 3 groups of people whose habits we tend to adopt, often unconsciously. The first group is the close, our family and friends. These individuals have the most powerful influence on us simply because we spend the most time with them. Proximity amplifies their emotional impact. If your friends regularly go to the gym, there's a high chance you'll eventually join in. If your partner eats vegetarian, you might be inspired to try it. If your roommate studies late into the night, you'll likely follow that pattern. You don't need to be told what to do. Just being around them shapes your habits by osmosis. The second group is the many, the influence of social norms. Imagine walking into a quiet restaurant where everyone is whispering. You'll instinctively lower your voice. Think about your first day at a new job when you're unsure of how to behave. What do? You watch everyone else and copy them? That's how human beings avoid social rejection. We model ourselves on what we see others doing, as Clear puts it. Most days we'd rather be wrong with the crowd than right by ourselves. That's how deeply we're wired for conformity. The third layer is the powerful, those with status. We don't just copy our peers, we also mimic people we look up to. These are the respected, the successful, the wise, the attractive. If someone we admire writes every day, meditates, runs marathons, reads deep books, or journals each morning, we want to be like them. We begin to copy their routines, not just because of what they do, but because of who they are. This is the key to forming new habits. It's not just about changing what we do, it's about reshaping who we want to become. This leads to a crucial insight about identity and belonging. Clear writes, when your behavior aligns with the values of your tribe, you feel a sense of belonging. And when a habit fosters that sense of connection, it doesn't feel like a burden anymore. It feels meaningful. It becomes a way of expressing, this is who we are. This is what we do. This is how we live. So take a moment and reflect. Who are the we in your life? What habits define your current tribe? Are those habits moving you closer to or further from the person you want to become? Sometimes the biggest change isn't about switching up your daily routine. It's about changing your room, the people you spend your time with. Thankfully, Claire Docenti leaves us with just the theory. He gives us practical strategies on how to use the tribe to our advantage. First, he recommends joining a group where your desired behavior is the norm. If you want to write more, join a writing group. If you want to lift weights, go to a gym where people consistently train. If your goal is to save money, surround yourself with frugal individuals. Don't fight against the force of social pressure. Instead, redirect it to support your new identity. Second, create shared goals. People are more likely to stick with habits when they're part of a collective mission. Start challenges with others. Invite accountability partners. Stay in touch through group chats. Make your personal progress part of a larger story that's shared and supported. Third, celebrate shared victories. When everyone in your group feels proud of a collective achievement, the emotional boost enhances motivation. The tribe reinforces the behavior not just with logic, but with excitement, celebration, and shared pride. This is the kind of positive reinforcement that habits thrive on. But what happens when your current tribe resists your change? This is a painful and very real situation. Claire is honest about it. Unsurprisingly, you'll find it hard to go against the grain. And sometimes, changing your habits means reevaluating your relationships. There are a few things you can do in this situation. You can lead by quiet example, hoping others may follow your lead over time. You can seek new communities and add layers of support without necessarily cutting ties with everyone. And you can strengthen your personal identity, affirming to yourself who you are becoming, even if others don't recognize it yet. Claire delivers one of the most powerful lines in the chapter when he says, "It's hard to change your habits if you never change the group you belong to." That statement may sting, but it's also incredibly empowering, because it reminds us that we always have a choice. We can choose the environments we step into. We can choose the people we align with. This chapter isn't about manipulating others or giving in to peer pressure. It's about social design, intentionally placing yourself in environments that make your desired identity feel natural, accepted, and even expected. As James Clear emphasizes throughout his book, behavior is driven by belonging. So the next time you aim to change something about yourself, ask, is there a tribe that already lives this way? Can I become part of their world? Because when your new habit becomes the cost of entry into a community you admire, you'll adopt it not reluctantly, but eagerly, consistently, and deeply. And that's when real change happens. That's when transformation becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Because, as Clear concludes, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And often, your strongest system is the people around you. Chapter 10. How to Find and Fix the Causes of Your Bad Habits. James Clear opens this chapter with a powerful insight. Bad habits are autocatalytic. The process feeds itself. This means that bad habits often perpetuate themselves in a self-reinforcing loop. Picture this. You feel anxious, so you scroll your phone. Then you feel guilty, which only leads you to scroll more. Or you might feel bored, so you snack. Then you feel sluggish, and again, you reach for food. These behaviors are not random, nor are they simply signs of weakness. They are loops, repetitive patterns that have become automatic through reinforcement over time. Understanding this loop is crucial because, before we can hope to break it, we must first accept a foundational truth. Every behavior has a reason, even the negative ones. This is why this chapter holds such importance. It reminds us that lasting change doesn't come from brute force or willpower, but from awareness. Clear, then, revisits a foundational concept in behavioral science, the habit loop. He explains that every habit, whether good or bad, follows a consistent pattern. Cue gives craving, gives response, gives reward. The cue is the trigger, something you experience, whether it's something you see, feel, hear, or go through. The craving is the desire sparked by the cue, usually a desire to change your internal state. The response is the action or habit you perform, and the reward is the feeling of relief or satisfaction you get from it, even if it's only temporary. For instance, let's say you receive a stressful email queue. You want some relief or distraction craving. You then open YouTube or reach for junk food response. You feel momentarily better reward, though the stress eventually returns. This loop shows us clearly where we can intervene. Clear advises, starting with the cue. By identifying and becoming aware of our triggers, we reclaim our power to choose. Differently, the first actionable step Clear provides is awareness, cultivated through habit reflection. Before changing a bad habit, you need to observe it clearly. That's why he introduces the concept of building a habit awareness muscle with a simple but effective tool, the habit scorecard. Start by writing down your daily habits, beginning from the moment you wake up. For example, wake up, check phone, make coffee, scroll social media, brush teeth, skip breakfast, commute while anxious, arrive late. Then label each habit as good plus bad or neutral equals. The goal here isn't to judge yourself or try to fix anything right away. It's to observe, to learn to see your habits for what they really are. Over time, especially with destructive or unhealthy habits, repetition makes them invisible. You stop noticing them, they just happen automatically. But the habit scorecard shines a light on these patterns, bringing them back into conscious awareness. Next comes the task of identifying the true cue. Here's where things get particularly insightful. Most bad habits don't begin with the behavior itself, they begin with a feeling, as Clear explains. Many of our bad habits are coping mechanisms for dealing with emotions such as stress, boredom, anxiety, or loneliness. You might think your habit is, I smoke when I'm on break, but underneath it's really, I need a moment to decompress and feel in control. Or you may say, I stay up late watching TV, but the deeper truth is I'm dreading tomorrow and trying to delay it. The key here is to stop asking, why is this behavior bad? And instead ask, what problem is this habit trying to solve? Or what emotion is this habit helping me escape? Or what deeper need is this behavior pointing to? These reflective questions often lead to breakthroughs, revealing the emotional architecture behind your habits. Once you've identified the cues and emotional drivers, you can begin to cut bad habits off at the source. This involves making intentional changes to your environment before the craving even begins. Clear shares some of his favorite strategies for this. The first is to make the cue invisible. If you're trying to stop eating junk food, don't leave chips out on the kitchen counter. If you want to stop checking your phone in bed, keep it out of your bedroom. If you want to avoid doom scrolling, log out of apps or hide them. As Clear puts it, it's easier to avoid temptation than to resist it. This is what he calls upstream change. You don't just try to fix the behavior after it's started. You alter the conditions that allow it to happen in the first place. The second strategy is to redesign your space to make better behaviors more convenient. Keep books by your bed instead of your phone. Place healthy food where it's easily visible and accessible. Put a yoga mat near your workspace. These are small changes, but they help reinforce the identity you want to build by shaping your environment to support that identity. The third strategy is to use something called an implementation intention. This is a powerful technique. Instead of vague goals like, I'll eat better, you set specific plans like, if I get stressed, I will take 5 deep breaths and make tea. In doing so, you build an alternate response that still meets the emotional need, but in a healthier, intentional way. Sometimes, though, changing your environment isn't enough, because the cue exists within you and your emotions. Clear challenges us to build emotional resilience, which means learning to deal with your feelings in new ways. This means sitting with boredom instead of reacting to it. It means noticing cravings without immediately responding. It means observing your stress rather than trying to suppress it. And it means naming your emotions rather than acting them out through behaviors. This goes beyond habit, work. Kit becomes inner work. Ultimately, changing habits means changing identity, and that's deeply emotional work. Claire illustrates this with a powerful story of a sales manager who used to eat candy from her desk every afternoon. At first, it seemed like a basic sugar craving. But after some reflection, she realized this happened only after her boss passed by with a harsh look. The candy wasn't just about sugar, it was a comfort against anxiety, like she couldn't control. her boss's behavior, but she could notice the pattern and build a new one, taking deep breaths, placing a note of affirmation on her monitor, and making tea instead of grabbing candy. This was a small shift, but it led to a big change. It's a perfect example of the art of noticing instead of fighting, replacing instead of repressing. In his final reflections, Clear reminds us that bad habits are not signs of failure. They are signs of unmet needs. If we want to change them, we must go upstream. To go upstream, we must first get honest. We must pause and reflect. The bad habit itself is not the real enemy, it is a messenger. So the next time you catch yourself mindlessly scrolling, biting your nails, procrastinating, or falling back into an old behavior, don't beat yourself up. Instead, gently ask yourself, what am I really needing? What triggered this? Can I meet this need another way? That is the beginning of deep and gentle transformation. Our lives are built in patterns, and the good news is patterns can be redrawn, one cue at a time, one choice at a time. As Clear concludes, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And those systems always begin with awareness. Chapter 11. Walk slowly, but never backward. James Clear opens this chapter by presenting a deeply resonant truth. Success is the product of daily habits, not once-in-a-lifetime transformations. However, this idea stands in stark contrast to what most of us have been conditioned to believe. Society often trains us to expect major life changes to happen through big moments, cinematic breakthroughs, and dramatic turning points. We're told to look for transformation in the form of overnight success stories or pivotal life events. But the reality of true change is far quieter. Real transformation comes through the slow grind, the unglamorous commitment to showing up every day, especially when it feels like nothing is changing. Claire introduces a profound concept here, one that sheds light on why most people give up on their goals, the plateau of latent potential. To illustrate this idea, he asks us to imagine trying to melt an ice cube sitting on a table in a cold room. At 25 degrees Fahrenheit, nothing happens. At 26 degrees Fahrenheit, still nothing. You try again at 27, 28, 29 degrees and yet the ice remains solid. You're working, sweating, staying consistent, but the results remain invisible. Then, suddenly, at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the cube melts. It might appear that the melting happened in an instant, but the real work, the true transformation was happening all along. Clear explains, complaining about not achieving success, despite working hard, is like complaining about an ice cube not melting when you heated it from 25 to 31 degrees. This concept, the plateau of latent potential, is the hidden phase, where results lag behind effort, where progress feels invisible, and unfortunately, where most people give up. Clear names this psychological trap the valley of disappointment. It's the gap between what we expect to happen and what we actually experience. This is where most habits die. You've been eating healthy for weeks and see no weight loss. You've been writing every day but still have no readers. Meditated for a month, yet your anxiety remains. It feels like failure, but it's not. It's just early. Because all meaningful results are delayed. They compound over time, and the nature of compounding is deceptive. It hides progress rather than making it immediately visible. Habits need to persist long enough to break through the plateau of latent potential. Think of bamboo. It spends years growing roots underground, then suddenly, within weeks, shoots up 90 feet. That's what habit transformation looks like. You walk slowly, but you never go backward. In this chapter, Clear also shifts our focus from obsessing over goals to trusting the system. We all love setting goals. Lose 20 pounds, make $10,000 a month, read 50 books, but there's a trap in this thinking. Goals are great for setting direction, but systems are what actually drive progress. Goals are event-based and live in the future, while systems are process-based and grounded in the present. When you fall in love with the system rather than just the outcome, you begin to win every day. Writing 500 words becomes a win, even if the book isn't finished. Going to the gym becomes a win, even if your abs aren't visible yet. Saving $5 becomes a win, even if you're not yet wealthy. You start measuring your progress by your daily actions rather than the distant outcomes, and that shift changes everything. One of Clear's most powerful insights is this: winners and losers often have the same goals. Every Olympian wants. To win gold, every candidate wants the job. Every startup wants success. So clearly, goals alone can't be the difference maker. The real difference lies in their systems. It's not about who wants it more. It's about who structures their life better to support it. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. It's not desire but design that determines success. Clear emphasizes that behavior change is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more of who you truly are, one action at a time. Instead of focusing on the outcome, ask yourself, who is the type of person who could achieve this? Then, align your habits with that identity. If your goal is to read more books, your identity becomes, I am a reader. If you want to eat healthier, I am someone who respects their body. If your goal is to start a business, I am a builder, a creator, a doer. Every small action you take becomes a vote for that identity. You become your habits, and your habits are the architecture of your identity. So how do we stay consistent when the results don't show up immediately? Clear provides practical tools for enduring the plateau. First, focus on your trajectory, not your current position. Ask yourself, am I moving in the right direction? Am I showing up today? Am I reinforcing the identity I want? Success doesn't come from where you are. It comes from the angle you're traveling at. Even just 1% better each day compounds into massive progress over time. Second, measure backward, not just forward. Don't only focus on what's left to accomplish. Take stock of how far you've already come. Notice what used to be difficult, but now feels easy. Recognize how things that once intimidated you now feel automatic. That's progress, and tracking it fuels your momentum. Third, build a ritual of showing up. It's not about perfection, it's about consistency. A bad workout is still better than no workout. Writing one paragraph is better than writing nothing. One mindful breath is better than skipping meditation. Clear introduces a simple but powerful mantra: don't miss twice. Everyone slips. You will too. But when you do, the key is to get back on track immediately. Momentum is fragile, but it's also resilient if you protect it. To bring these ideas to life, Clear shares the story of legendary comedian Jerry Seinfeld. His secret to writing jokes every day was surprisingly simple: a wall calendar. Day, he wrote, he'd mark an X on that day. Over time, the X's formed a chain, and his only rule: don't break the chain. He wasn't trying to write a brilliant joke every day. He was just trying not to miss a day. That was his system: small, repeatable, and unbreakable. Clear concludes with a final reflection, an encouragement for those who feel stuck. You might be doing the work and seeing no visible change. That's the ice cube. You're at 29 degrees, but you're so close. Keep showing up. Keep voting for the identity you want. Keep walking slowly, maybe but never backward. Because transformation is not a single event. It's a direction, a path, a system. And the moment you're looking for, the visible result might be just around the corner. What if today's effort, the one that feels like it's doing nothing, is actually the 31st degree? What if tomorrow is the moment the ice finally melts? You'll never know unless you keep walking. Chapter 12. The law of least effort. Human behavior follows the law of least effort. James Clear begins this chapter with a gentle yet powerful truth. We naturally gravitate toward the option that requires the least amount of work. This tendency isn't rooted in laziness, as some might assume, but rather in efficiency. Our brains evolve with a strong inclination to conserve energy, and this evolutionary trait affects every choice we make, what we eat. When we work, whether we read or scroll our phones, each of these decisions becomes a quiet negotiation between the effort it takes and the reward it promises. Therefore, When it comes to making good habits stick, the solution isn't to summon more willpower. Instead, the answer lies in better design. One of Clear's most repeated and profoundly insightful ideas is this: environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. Many of us believe our habits are simply a matter of motivation or will, but more often than not, they're just reactions to the cues in our environment. For example, you might eat chips, not because you had an intense craving, but simply because they were sitting on the kitchen counter. You scroll on your phone not out of deliberate choice, but because the device was within easy reach. And when you skip a workout, it's likely not due to laziness, but because your gym clothes were buried in the laundry. The reality is that we respond to what is easy, obvious, and readily available. Recognizing this, we can start designing our environments so that the right choice is also the easiest one. Clear provides a beautiful and instructive metaphor. A gardener. A gardener doesn't motivate a plant to grow, she simply creates the right conditions for growth. She provides sunlight, healthy soil, water, and space. Then she steps back and lets nature take over. Similarly, your habits don't need force, they need fertile ground. Instead of trying harder, Clear suggests that we design smarter. Rather than relying solely on discipline, we should rely on setup, because ultimately, energy follows the path of least resistance. This brings us to a practical application of the concept, which Clear calls the friction principle. The idea is simple but powerful. Increase friction for bad habits and decrease friction for good ones. Here's how this principle manifests in everyday life. If you want to build better habits, try these adjustments. Want to read more? Leave a book on your pillow. Want to eat healthier? Pre-chop your vegetables and store them at eye level in the fridge. Want to work out more often? Sleep in your gym clothes. Want to write daily? Keep your journal open on your desk. The goal is to make the first step so easy that saying no feels almost illogical. Design your space so that the default action is the one you desire. Conversely, if you want to break bad habits, create friction. Want to scroll less on your phone? Delete social media apps or log out after every session? Want to cut down on TV time? Plug the TV and hide the remote in a drawer? Want to stop mindless snacking? Keep snacks out of the house, or at least place them in high inconvenient cupboards. Every extra step introduces a bit of friction, and even the smallest amount can be enough to kill a temptation before it starts. Clear also introduces a compelling concept. Every space in your home sends a behavioral message. Each room or corner comes with a psychological script. The kitchen signals it's time to eat. The couch signals it's time to relax. The desk tells you to work. The bed to sleep. However, in modern life, these boundaries often become blurred. We eat meals at our desks. We work while lying in bed. We scroll endlessly even while sitting on the toilet. This boundary blurring creates confusion in our minds. The brain loses its ability to associate spaces with specific actions. Clear's solution is simple but effective. One space, one use. Even if your home is small, you can still create defined zones for your habits. A specific chair can be your reading spot. A corner of your room can become your writing station. A floor cushion might serve as your meditation place. When your brain enters that zone, it immediately understands what behavior is expected, no motivation required. James Clear then emphasizes the power of visual cues. These are the strongest environmental triggers we have. For instance, a guitar stored away in the closet rarely gets played. A meditation app buried on the third screen of your phone rarely gets opened. Vitamins kept in a drawer are easily forgotten. The fix? Make the cue visible. Place the guitar in the middle of your living space. Put your yoga mat right by the front door. Set your water bottle beside your laptop. When the cue is obvious and visible, starting the habit becomes natural. This idea is at the heart of the second law of behavior change. Make it easy. Nothing is easier than a habit that initiates before you've even thought about it. To reinforce this idea, Clear introduces a strategy called environment priming. It involves preparing your space in advance so that the next action becomes effortless. For example, if you want to eat a healthy breakfast tomorrow, set out the pan and oats the night before. If you plan to go for a morning run, put your shoes by the door and preload a podcast. If your goal is to write, Open the document and type the title before going to bed. When your environment is primed, your behavior becomes automatic. You remove the need for decision-making, which is mentally taxing. The more steps you eliminate between you and the habit, the more likely it is you'll follow through. Zooming out. The true beauty of this chapter is not that Clear asks us to become more disciplined individuals. Rather, he invites us to become intentional designers of our lives. Designers don't depend on willpower. They remove obstacles. They smooth the path. They make the right thing the easy thing. This is the essence of the law of least effort. I think it applies to everything from your kitchen, to your phone, to your calendar. To further illustrate this principle, Clear shares a story from Japan's railway system. The Japanese Shinkansen, or bullet trains, are celebrated worldwide for their efficiency. But their speed isn't just about the trains themselves. It's about a system meticulously designed to support that speed. The tracks are engineered to minimize curves. The staff is trained for impeccable timing. The platforms are structured for smooth boarding. In short, speed is embedded into the entire system. And that's exactly what you should aim for with your habits. Build your personal bullet train, not by pushing yourself harder, but by laying down better tracks. To conclude, Clear brings everything together with a profound message. If you want to develop better habits, don't chase perfection. Don't wait for motivation. Don't rely on memory. Instead, make the habit easy. Make it visible. Make it automatic. Because design always beats discipline. And the best part, once your setup is complete, the habits will happen almost on autopilot. They'll follow the path of least resistance. They'll become your default mode. They'll become part of who you are. Your environment is constantly speaking to you. The question is, what is it whispering? Is it supporting the person you're becoming? Or is it dragging you back into an older version of yourself that you've already outgrown? Remember, you don't have to fight your habits. All you have to do is set the stage for them. And then let the law of least effort take care of the rest. Chapter 13. How to stop procrastinating by using the 2-minute rule when you start a new habit. Should take less than 2 minutes. James Clear opens this chapter with a disarmingly simple idea. Nearly any habit can be scaled down into a 2-minute version. At first glance, it sounds almost too simple to be effective. How could just 2 minutes possibly change your life? But as you'll soon understand, those 2 minutes aren't just the start of the habit, they are the habit, because motion creates momentum, and once you begin, your behavior naturally continues. So the focus of this chapter is about learning how to shrink your biggest goals into the tiniest possible steps and win before your brain even gets a chance. To resist, let's imagine this together. You want to become someone who runs every morning. But the thought of running 5 kilometers, lacing your shoes, finding the right playlist, it's overwhelming. So instead, try this. Just put on your running shoes. That's it. That's your entire goal. 2 minutes. Done. And yet once. The shoes are on. Chances are you'll go outside. Maybe stretch a little, maybe even jog a bit. Because the biggest barrier wasn't the running, it was the starting. Clear calls this kind of action a gateway habit. It's a small, low-effort action that naturally leads to more. It's not about doing the full thing. It's about becoming the kind of person who does the thing. That shift in identity is where the magic lies. The 2-minute rule is incredibly straightforward. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes. That's it. Want to read more? Just read 1 page. Want to write more? Write 1 sentence. Want to floss daily? Floss 1 tooth. Want to eat healthy? Cut 1 vegetable. Want to meditate? Sit in silence for 2 minutes? These actions may seem so small that they appear insignificant, but that's precisely the point. They're too small to fail. They're so easy they don't trigger your brain's resistance. They slip quietly beneath the radar of your internal protests. And in doing so, they build the identity of someone who shows up consistently. As Clear emphasizes, a habit must be established before it can be improved. Think of it like pouring cement. You can't build anything until the foundation is set. The 2-minute rule is how you pour that foundation. Creates a mental loop of start, gives succeed, gives feel, good gives repeat. This loop is crucial because your brain craves certainty. When a habit feels too big or overwhelming, you hesitate. But when it feels easy, you act. And over time, those 2 minutes naturally grow. One page turns into a chapter. One sentence becomes a paragraph. One push-up becomes a workout. But that's not your concern today. Today, your only goal is just to begin. There's something powerful in what Clear says next. Instead of trying to engineer a perfect habit from the beginning, do the easy thing on a more consistent basis. This is how mastery truly begins, not with intensity, not with a burst of inspiration, but with ritual. A small act done repeatedly becomes part of who you are. So don't chase perfect effort. Chase perfect starts. Your job isn't to run 5 kilometers, it's to become someone who puts on their shoes every morning. Your job isn't to write a novel, it's to become someone who opens their notebook every evening. When you master the ritual, the results begin to take care of themselves. But there's a danger here too. And Clear doesn't shy away from calling it out. Many people focus on figuring out the best approach. They spend their days planning, researching, and thinking instead of acting. He refers to this as motion without action. It feels productive. Making a playlist instead of going to the gym, reading about writing instead of actually writing, watching videos about healthy eating instead of cooking feels like progress, but in reality, it's a comfortable form of delay. The 2-minute rule kills this trap because it's not about thinking, it's about doing. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need a first step to expand on this. Clear introduces the concept of habit shaping, a strategy that helps you build habits in stages. Here's how it works. Start with something very easy, like putting on your workout clothes. Once that's automatic, move to something easy, like doing 5 push-ups, when that feels natural. Go for something moderate, like completing a 10-minute routine. And only when you're ready, move to something hard, like following a full workout program. Each stage flows naturally from the last, but you never force progress. You grow into it. Just like a tree, you send roots deep before reaching high, and those 2-minute habits are your first roots. This brings us back to one of the book's central truths. The goal is not to read a book, but to become a reader. The goal is not to run a marathon, but to become a runner. The goal is not to write a book, but to become a writer. Every time you follow a 2-minute habit, you cast a vote for the identity you want to create. One sentence?
Yeah.
Still a writer? 1 push-up? Still an athlete? 1 breath? Still a meditator? These small, repeated votes add up over time. It's FIS. And eventually, without even realizing it, you become the person you always hoped to be, not because you chased a specific outcome, but because you trusted the system. Let's pause for a moment and reflect. There's something almost poetic about the idea that greatness begins with a gesture. Small, quiet, humble act. Tying a shoelace, turning a page, unrolling a yoga mat. That's the hidden strength of the 2-minute rule. It removes the pressure. It erases the guilt. It gives you permission to begin again and again, because the world doesn't reward the biggest goals. It rewards the ones who start, and then start again, and never stop starting. So today, as you face the towering mountain of your habits, don't worry about climbing it all. Just take the first 2 minutes. Put on your shoes, open your book, write the title, sit still and breathe, 'cause your future is shaped not by massive effort or dramatic change, but by tiny, deliberate acts of consistency. And when you make starting easy, everything else becomes possible. Chapter 14. How to Make Good Habits Inevitable and Bad. Habits Impossible. James Clear begins this chapter with a fascinating story about the famous British industrialist and writer, Victor Hugo. In 1830, Hugo was grappling with procrastination while trying to write his next novel. He had already signed a contract and the deadline was approaching fast, yet he continued to waste his days wandering around the city, entertaining guests and avoiding the actual work of writing. In a bold and extreme move to break this cycle, Hugo locked away all his clothes, literally. He placed them in a chest, locked it, and handed the key over to someone else. With no access to his clothes, he couldn't leave the house. Trapped indoors with nothing to distract him, he finally began writing. This vivid example serves as a powerful illustration of the theme of the chapter. This chapter revolves around a core idea. The best way to break a bad habit is to make it impractical to do. The best way to build a good habit is to make it unavoidable. Let that sink in. Clear emphasizes that this strategy is not about relying on willpower. It's about designing your life in a way that naturally leads you toward better behavior. He urges readers to stop depending on discipline and instead focus on creating an environment that supports their desired habits. Clear introduces a profound insight. Disciplined people are not more disciplined than others. They've just designed their lives in a way that doesn't require heroic willpower. With that, the chapter dives into the practical steps we can take to follow this philosophy. We often think of habits as being shaped by internal factors like mindset, motivation, and self-control. But the truth, Clear argues, is that our environment plays a much larger role. Your habits are often shaped not by your motivation, but by your environment. Take a moment to consider your own day. If the TV remote is within reach, you're likely to turn on the television. If cookies are sitting on the kitchen counter, you're probably going to eat them. If your phone is beside your bed, you'll likely scroll on it late into the night. These aren't conscious decisions. They're default actions driven by our surroundings. So what if we flipped the script? What if we made the positive behaviors the path of least resistance and the bad habits more difficult to pursue? This is what Clear calls the art of inversion, and it's the central lesson of this chapter. One of the most powerful tools Clear offers is something known as a commitment device. It's a method of locking in good behavior ahead of time by eliminating the option to act against your goals. A commitment device is a choice you make in the present that locks in better behavior for the future. Just like Victor Hugo locking away his clothes, the idea is to remove the ability to make the wrong choice. Some practical examples include deleting distracting apps from your phone, making it impossible to scroll mindlessly even if you want to. You could freeze your credit cards in a block of ice, which adds a literal layer of difficulty to impulse spending. Website blockers can help turn writing or focused work into the default action instead of watching YouTube. Scheduling a workout with a friend makes skipping it harder because you'd be letting someone else down. These devices don't force you to be a better person. They simply make it easier to do what's right. Clear then discusses how automation can serve as the highest level of environment design. Why is this so powerful? Because it removes the element of choice altogether. When you automate good behaviors, they no longer require daily motivation or deliberation. For example, set up automatic transfers to your savings account, so saving money happens without a second thought. Automate your bill payments to avoid late fees and stress. Pre-plan your meals or grocery orders online to prevent unhealthy impulse purchases. Use calendar reminders to prompt you to take action on long-term goals. Once these systems are in place, the good behavior runs in the background. You no longer wrestle with your motivation. You simply live out your values on autopilot. It's not laziness, it's leverage. Clear makes an essential point here. We often try to fight bad habits by adding friction to good ones, but the real key is to reverse that strategy. We should be removing friction from good habits and adding friction to bad ones. Let's consider what that looks like in practice. To make good habits inevitable, you can lay out your workout clothes the night before so it's easy to get moving in the morning. Place a book on your pillow so it's the last thing you see at night and encourages reading. Keep healthy food visible and within reach, while hiding or eliminating junk food from your kitchen. Use apps and tools that nudge you toward productivity instead of distraction. On the flip side, to make bad habits impossible, you might unplug your TV to make watching it a hassle. Use app limits or enable screen downtime on your phone to reduce usage. Leave your phone in another room while working to remove temptation. Better yet, don't bring junk food home at all. As Clear puts it, you don't need to be stronger. You need to be smarter about what's around you. Every physical space has a structure, and Clear refers to this as the choice architecture. This structure silently shapes your behavior. For instance, researchers discovered that students in cafeterias made healthier choices when water bottles were placed at eye level instead of sodas. The students didn't try harder. They simply responded to their new environment. Now think about your own habit spaces. What's at eye level in your pantry? What sits beside your bed? What does your phone's home screen look like? These seemingly minor design decisions influence your daily behavior. Each one nudges you toward becoming a certain type of person. The question you should ask yourself is, who are you being nudged to become? Clear encourages readers to design their homes in a way that supports their identity and goals. Assign one purpose to each space in your home to reinforce focus and intentionality. For instance, create a reading chair where you never use your phone. Use a dedicated desk just for work, not for eating or relaxing. Set up a meditation corner, free from distractions. Consider removing phones entirely from the bedroom and using a physical alarm clock instead. Context matters because your brain associates certain environments with specific behaviors. If you always watch TV in bed, your brain won't connect the bedroom with sleep. If you scroll on your phone in your work chair, your brain won't associate that space with productivity. Your environment helps solidify your habits and identity. The chapter returns to the powerful theme of identity. Every habit reinforces an identity. Clear writes, your environment becomes a reflection of who you are and who you're becoming. If your home is full of books, it signals that you're a reader. If your kitchen is stocked and prepped for cooking, you start to see yourself as a chef. If your workspace is clean, organized, and distraction-free, you naturally become more focused. Your surroundings tell your story. So if you want to become a different person, don't begin with actions. Begin by changing what surrounds you. Finally, Clear confronts the long-held myth of willpower. Change comes from trying harder, being tougher, and summoning more motivation. But Clear challenges this belief. The people with the best self-control are not those with heroic willpower. They're the ones who structure their lives to avoid needing it in the first place, rather than fighting temptation every day. You can redesign your environment to remove the temptation altogether. Lock away the clothes like Hugo. Rearrange your kitchen. Silence your phone. Declutter your workspace. When systems are in place, they don't rely on fleeting emotions or bursts of motivation. They simply work. That's what true transformation looks like today. Clear asks us not to focus solely on our goals, but to examine the world around us. What would it take to make your good habits inevitable? What could you remove to make your bad habits impossible? The answers are already around you on your desk, in your kitchen, in your pockets. Your life is not only shaped by your choices, but by what surrounds you. Change the environment, and the behavior will follow. Chapter 15. The Cardinal Rule of Behavior Change. Why satisfying is the missing piece by now. We've learned how to make good habits obvious, attractive, and easy. But there's one more key, perhaps the most important of all. The satisfaction that comes after the behavior. James Clear puts it this way: what is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. This is the cardinal rule of behavior change. Why? Because our brains are wired to respond to immediate feedback, not long-term consequences. We know eating a donut will sabotage our health in the long term, but in the moment, it tastes amazing. We know skipping the gym adds up over time, but the instant reward of staying in bed wins. Again. So, the only way to outsmart this short-term wiring is simple. You have to make good habits satisfying right now. The role of immediate rewards. James Clear explains that our brains evolved to prioritize the present. In the wild, survival depended on acting fast, eat now, rest now, run now. That's why long-term thinking is so difficult. Today's world may reward patience, but our bodies still crave now. So, when a habit feels good immediately, it sticks. When it only pays off later, we tend to quit. That's the core problem. Most good habits come with delayed rewards, while most bad habits provide instant ones.
Ow.
That's the reversal we must learn to hack. Why bad habits stick so easily? Let's take a closer look at the structure of bad versus good habits. Consider the following. Bad habit: immediate reward, delayed consequence. In junk food tastes, great weight gain. Low energy, skipping workouts, more free time. Comfort, poor health. Loss of strength, scrolling, social media, instant entertainment time. Loss. Low. Focus, smoking, stress, relief, health damage, addiction. Meanwhile, for good habits, The equation looks like this. Good habit immediate, cost delayed, reward working out. Effort. Time health, energy, confidence seeding, healthier restraint, planning fitness, clarity reading mental effort knowledge. Calm saving money, denied pleasure wealth, security C. The imbalance? If we want good habits to compete, we must reverse the equation. That's where Clear's fourth law comes in. Make it satisfying. Reinforcement. Sealing the habit loop. The habit loop has 4 essential parts: cue, craving, response, reward. Without that final part, the reward, the loop remains incomplete. When a habit feels good, even in a small way, it reinforces itself, becomes something the brain wants to do again. Think about brushing your teeth. The minty freshness. It's no accident. Toothpaste companies added flavor and foam not for health benefits but for satisfaction. That sensory feeling rewards the behavior. As Clear writes, pleasure teaches your brain that a behavior is worth remembering and repeating. It's the brain's way of saying, let's do that again. Habit tracking. A visual reward system. One of Clear's favorite tools for creating satisfaction is tracking. Whether it's checking off a calendar, using a habit app, or filling in a notebook. A visible streak gives you a tiny hit of accomplishment. Did you write today? Worked out? Meditated? Flossed? Its check mark is a vote for your identity. It says, yes, I'm the kind of person who follows through. It taps into something deeper than dopamine. It taps into pride. You see your progress, and that feels good. Don't break the chain. Clear references the famous Seinfeld strategy. Jerry Seinfeld reportedly used a wall calendar to build his habit of writing jokes every day. Each day he wrote, he marked a big red X, then another, and another. Soon, there was a chain. And his only goal? Don't break the chain. It wasn't about writing great jokes. It was about showing up. This is the key. We're not building habits for perfection, but for consistency. Satisfaction comes from seeing the chain grow. And pain comes from breaking it. Recovering from a miss. Never miss twice, but what happens when you do break the chain? Life happens. You get sick. You travel. You forget. Clear is clear on this. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. So, what's the rule? Never miss twice. That's it. You ate poorly today? Make the next. Meal healthy? Skip the gym? Show up tomorrow? Didn't write? Get back to it? The power isn't in never falling, it's in how quickly you stand up. That quick recovery that is satisfying. That is identity in motion. Make it personal. Another form of satisfaction is making the habit reflect your personality. Clear says a habit is satisfying when it aligns with your identity. So, find ways to personalize your process. Use a special notebook you love. Listen to your favorite playlist while you clean. Track your habits with colored pens. Reward yourself with a healthy smoothie after the gym. The more joy you bring into the routine, the more likely it is to stick. You're not just doing a task, you are becoming someone. And that's deeply rewarding. Use intrinsic rewards, extrinsic rewards like candy. Money or prizes don't work long term. Why? Because they don't connect the habit to your identity. Clear recommends focusing on intrinsic rewards. The calm after meditation, the clarity after journaling, the pride after a workout, the confidence from showing up. These are subtle, but powerful. They're the emotional echoes that tell your brain that felt good. Let's do it again. The habit cycle feeds itself when a habit is satisfying. It becomes self-reinforcing. You floss, your mouth feels fresh. You stretch, your body feels looser. You read, your mind feels sharper. You save, you feel secure. This immediate payoff is how short-term thinking can serve long-term goals. Over time, the good habit becomes its own reward. You're no longer chasing a result, you're enjoying the process, and that's how real change happens. Summary. Make it satisfying. Let's tie it all together. Clear's fourth law, make it satisfying, teaches us we repeat what rewards us, even subtly. Most bad habits are satisfying immediately, so we must counter that. Habit tracking gives visible proof, a micro reward. Don't break the chain, fuels consistency. Never miss twice keeps us resilient. Intrinsic joy makes a habit worth returning to. Satisfaction turns effort into identity. So don't just aim for productivity. Aim for pleasure and progress. You've made it through all 4 laws. Make it obvious. Make it attractive. Make it easy. Make it satisfying. But the real secret? All of these laws aren't just tactics. They're tools to help you become someone new. You're not just building habits. You're building identity. And that is a deeply satisfying journey. Chapter 16. How to stick with good habits every day. Asterisk. By now, you've learned how to start habits, how to shape them, and how to make them feel rewarding. But beneath all this learning, there's a quiet, persistent question lingering. How do you keep going? Not just for a week, not just for a month. But how do you maintain good habits every single day? This chapter dives into the deeper art of making good habits so anchored, so naturally timed, and so effortlessly triggered that doing them becomes as unconscious as brushing your teeth. James Clear's approach is grounded in a simple yet profound truth. The secret to sticking with good habits is to build a system that naturally pulls you toward the desired behavior. Let's explore exactly how to do that. One of the most effective strategies is what Clear calls habit. Anchors attaching your new habit to something already solid in your routine. Humans are creatures of rhythm, not memory. Every morning trying to remember everything we're supposed to do. Instead, we follow patterns, routines, and cues. That's why one of the most powerful methods for habit stability is habit stacking. You may have come across it already. It's the simple idea of pairing your new habit with an old automatic one. For example, after I brush my teeth, I'll floss. Or after I pour my morning coffee, I'll journal 1 line. After I take off my shoes at home, I'll do 10 squats. Or even, after I sit down at my desk, I'll write 50 words. This method leverages existing momentum to support new growth. It doesn't resist your current routine. Integrates with it. So the real question becomes, what rhythms already exist in your life? What daily, unskippable actions can serve as solid anchors for your new habits? Think of moments like morning coffee, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, commuting, your lunch break, dinner time, or locking the door at night. These become the anchors, and your new habit becomes the satellite that orbits around them. Clear deepens this idea by introducing the power of time and location as habit cues, 2 of the most effective triggers for behavior. These are the invisible scaffolds that shape our routines. We typically wake up at similar times, eat in the same kitchen, and relax in the same favorite chair. Over time, our brains begin to associate certain places and times with specific behaviors. So what happens when we intentionally assign new habits to a particular time and location? Examples might include, at 7 a.m. in my kitchen, I stretch for 5 minutes. Or at 8 p.m. at my desk, I write 100 words. Maybe even at 6 p.m. on my balcony, I meditate. In these cases, your environment becomes your reminder. You no longer depend on willpower or memory or rhythm carries you. Speaking of environments, Clear reminds us that your environment is not neutral. It's either nudging you toward good habits or silently steering you away from them. He puts it plainly. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. So if you want to read more, place a book on your pillow. Want to eat healthier? Keep fruit in a visible bowl on the counter. Want to write? Keep your laptop charged and ready. Want to walk more? Set your shoes by the door. These small environmental tweaks become silent cues. They whisper, do the thing. The easier and more visible the cue, the more automatic the behavior becomes. This is the core of environment design. It's not just about eliminating bad triggers, it's also about planting good ones in strategic places. But what happens when your environment changes? Life gets messy. You'll travel, get sick, move to a new place, or fall into a different schedule. And when that happens, habits often vanish. Clear offers a resilient strategy. In uncertain times, lean on your minimum viable habit. That means doing the smallest possible version of your habit just to maintain consistency. Can't do your full workout? Do 10 push-ups? Can't write 500 words? Write 50? Can't meditate for 20 minutes? Sit quietly for 2? Can't eat perfectly? Just drink a glass of water. Because in those moments, consistency beats intensity. Even if your external circumstances change, your internal identity doesn't have to. A micro-commitment sends the message, I'm still the kind of person who shows up. Now, let's take it a level deeper. Automation. What if you could build systems that remove the friction of daily decision-making? Not just reminders, but actual support mechanisms that make habits run automatically. Clear provides practical examples. Automate savings with bank transfers. Automate healthy eating with meal delivery services or meal prep routines. Automate workouts by joining a scheduled class. Automate focused work by using website blockers during your productive hours. The more behavior you remove from conscious deliberation, the more likely it is to be repeated. In essence, automation builds a bridge between intention and execution. Or as Clear puts it, design a world where doing the right thing is easier than doing nothing. Another powerful tool is the use of commitment devices. These are ways to lock in your future behavior before temptation even arises. For instance, unsubscribe from Netflix if binge watching kills your productivity. Leave your phone in another room when it's time to write. Schedule a workout with a friend so you won't flake. Use tech blockers to limit social media after a specific hour. These devices take the decision out of your hands before you're vulnerable. Because let's be honest, future, you can be unreliable. Commitment devices ensure that the decision is made in advance, while your willpower is strong. It's not later when you're tired or distracted. Then there's the classic but powerful strategy of habit tracking. The best way to make something part of your daily life is to measure it. Each checkmark, each tally, becomes visual proof that you're showing up. Clear reminds us again, what gets measured gets managed. Tracking creates a visible signal of your consistency. And even better, it gives you something worth protecting. Once a streak begins, you don't want to break it. At that point, you stop asking yourself, should I do this today? Instead, you ask, can I keep the streak alive? That shift in mindset changes everything. But don't go it alone. Habits become significantly easier when you're surrounded by people who live them. Want to stick with a new behavior? Join a group where your desired habit is the normal behavior. Clear emphasizes, join a group where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. The people around you reinforce your identity. They provide encouragement, accountability, and even a healthy dose of competition. Examples include joining a running club, sharing your writing online, participating in a reading challenge, or using a buddy system for workouts. The more social reinforcement you have around your habit, the less it feels like a chore, and the more it feels like a shared lifestyle. Finally, Claire introduces a powerful, yet often overlooked strategy, the habit reflection, or weekly review. It's a technique that separates amateurs from professionals. Each week, take time to ask yourself, did I stick to my habits? What's working? What's slipping? What can I tweak? This reflective pause prevents your system from drifting off course. It brings your habits back into focus. Because you're not just repeating actions, you're managing a process. Professionals treat improvement not as a one-time decision, but as a system to refine continuously. In conclusion, sticking with good habits isn't about heroic effort or massive willpower. It's about crafting reliable rituals. Anchor your new habits to the old ones that already exist. Use time and place cues to your advantage. Design your environment to support your identity. Shrink your habits to their smallest form when life gets hectic. Automate as much as possible. Commit in advance before temptation hits. Track your progress in visible ways. Reflect regularly to refine your system. And most importantly, lean on a supportive community. Consistency isn't boring. It's freeing. Because when your habits run smoothly in the background, your mind is free to dream, to create, and to grow. You're no longer fighting yourself every day you're flowing. That's how you build a life, not just a streak. You now know how. To make good habits a daily, automatic part of your identity, it's not about perfect days, it's about faithful rhythm. show up, even in small ways, even quietly. That's how real transformation takes root. Chapter 17. How an accountability partner changes everything. You don't have to go it alone. Let's be honest, when we think of habits, we often imagine solitude. We picture early mornings, personal routines, quiet journaling, and solo workouts. These images reinforce the idea that habit building is a lonely journey. But behind almost every long-term transformation, there's nearly always someone else in the picture: a voice, a partner, a witness. In this chapter, James Clear explores a powerful yet underused truth. One of the most effective things you can do to build better habits is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. This idea goes far beyond simple encouragement. It touches the core of identity alignment. It's about being accountable, not just to yourself, but to someone else. Let's explore how having another person involved can change everything. The power of being seen when no one is watching. Skipping a habit becomes easy. But when someone is expecting you to show up, when someone is noticing what you're doing, everything changes. Suddenly the stakes are higher. Clear introduces the idea of accountability partners, people who observe your actions, expect consistency from you, and support you through the process. These individuals don't need to be professional coaches, and they don't have to remind you every single day. They simply need to exist within your system. The psychological effect is profound. We care deeply about how we are perceived, especially by people whose opinions we respect. This isn't a flaw or weakness, it's an ancient instinct. Humans evolved in tribes where being cast out meant danger, so we learned to conform and cooperate. That tribal instinct still lives in us today. When used wisely, it can multiply your willpower many times over. The Accountability Agreement Clear shares a fascinating story in this chapter about two men, Brian and his friend, who created a habit contract. Brian committed to going to the gym regularly. If he skipped a session, he had to pay his friend $100. Even worse, if he lied about going, the penalty rose to $500. The genius of this setup wasn't just the financial cost, it was the social cost. Because someone else knew. That single fact made the habit feel real. Clear emphasizes this by stating, knowing that someone else is watching you can be a powerful motivator. It's not because you want to impress that person, but because you don't want to disappoint them. Or even worse, you don't want to disappoint yourself in front of them. Habit contracts. A tool for commitments. How do you apply this concept in your own life? Clear provides a simple method to create your own habit contract. Step 1 is to write the habit contract itself. This includes clearly defining what habit you're committing to, when and how you'll do it, and what the consequences are for missing it. Step 2 is to choose an accountability partner. This person should be someone you respect, someone you wouldn't want to lie to, and someone who is supportive yet honest. Importantly, this person doesn't need to enforce the contract there. Mere presence in the process is often enough. Step 3 is to add stakes. This could involve paying money if you miss your habit, doing something unpleasant, losing a privilege, or even publicly announcing a failure. The goal isn't to punish yourself, it's to create psychological pressure. You want the consequence to be stronger than the temptation to skip your habit. Join a culture. It's not just a partnership. While accountability partners are powerful, there's an even greater force at play. Culture, Clear advises. Surround yourself with people who have the habits you want to have. This goes beyond having one person watch you. It's about having an entire community reinforcing your behavior. Why does this matter? Because in a group setting, behavior becomes contagious. Social norms form naturally, and your identity shifts much faster. If everyone at your office takes the stairs, chances are you'll start taking them too. If your friends make a habit of reading every night, you'll likely pick up the habit. If your gym crew pushes for one more rep, you'll dig deeper. You're not just adopting a new habit or stepping into a new identity tribe. Mirror neurons. And behavioral imitation, let's dive deeper into why habits are so contagious. It has to do with something called mirror neurons. These are brain cells that activate when we see someone doing something as if we're doing it ourselves. This is why babies mimic adults, why laughter spreads in a room, and why one person yawning makes everyone else yawn too. So when you're surrounded by people practicing certain habits, your brain begins to rehearse those behaviors automatically. This isn't about forcing yourself to change, it's about osmosis. When you change your surroundings, your mind naturally follows identity. The most powerful pressure, the deepest reason accountability works, is that it taps into your sense of identity. Claire reminds us, every action is a vote for the type of person you want to become. When someone else sees you show up consistently, they begin to believe in that version of you, and eventually, you start to believe it too. You're longer someone who is trying to work out, you're becoming an athlete. You're not trying to write, you're becoming a writer. You're not trying to quit smoking, you're becoming a non-smoker. The presence of others strengthens this internal transformation. It's not about shame, it's about solidarity. You're not just changing your behavior, you're stepping into a new social identity. When accountability breaks down, of course. There are times when accountability can backfire. It can become problematic if you choose someone who is too lenient, if the contract feels overly forced, or if the environment becomes toxic or shaming. That's why it's essential to design the accountability relationship carefully. Accountability partner supports rather than criticizes. They believe in your goals, challenge your excuses kindly, and celebrate your wins. If the social pressure becomes too negative, it can lead to rebellion. If it's too soft, it can lead to complacency. The key lies in striking the right balance. Gentle tension coupled with strong support, build a habit circle. Clear ends the chapter with a powerful suggestion. Create your own accountability ecosystem. Don't just rely on one partner, build a circle. You could start a writing group, a fitness circle, a reading club, a startup crew, a no-sugar pact, or a meditation challenge. The more visible your behavior becomes to others, the more likely you are to stay committed. You'll be seen, supported, and safe. Over time, that structure becomes your shield, a system stronger than your mood, energy, or motivation. Final thoughts. Transformation through togetherness. At the end of the day, habit change isn't just about what you do. It's about who you become. Identity doesn't form in isolation. We come to understand ourselves through how others see us. When you step into a circle of accountability, you rise to meet the belief others have in you. You begin to act in alignment with your values. It transforms it in secret, but in community. The greatest change happens not just when you do something daily, but when you become someone new, together. So now you've uncovered the final. It's a powerful piece of the habit-building puzzle. Don't go it alone. I'll find someone to walk beside you. Someone who can reflect you back to yourself. Together, change doesn't just become possible, it becomes inevitable. Chapter 18. The truth about talent. When genes matter and when they don't, what matters more, natural talent or tireless effort? This age-old debate follows us from a young age. Whether in classrooms, sports teams, auditions, or careers, we encounter people who seem born to excel while others struggle to keep up. And then there are those rare individuals who defy all odds entirely. In this chapter, James Clear brings a fresh, balanced perspective to this debate.
He doesn't
offer false motivation or a harsh dose of cold realism. Instead, he focuses on something far more valuable: alignment. He introduces the idea that true success lies in finding the intersection between our natural strengths and the systems of habits we build. As he aptly puts it, genes do not determine your destiny. They determine your areas of opportunity. This chapter takes us on a deep dive into the truth behind talent and its role in shaping lasting habits. Each of us is born with a unique biological wiring that influences how we interact with the world and how we develop habits. This includes traits like reaction time, intelligence type, emotional regulation, pain tolerance, muscle fiber density, risk aversion, working memory, and even sleep patterns. These factors help shape how we naturally respond to challenges, routines, and life in general. Some people can't sit still for long, while others thrive in chaotic environments. Some need silence and structure, while others feel energized by competition and unpredictability. Clear emphasizes that when we ignore our biology, it's like trying to swim upstream. You might still reach your destination, but the effort required will be immense and often unsustainable. To better align habits with our innate abilities, Clear introduces the Goldilocks rule. According to this rule, humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are just at the edge of their current abilities, not too easy, not too hard, but just right. Imagine using a treadmill. If it's too slow, you're bored. It's too fast, and you're overwhelmed. But when the speed is just right, you're fully engaged. This sweet spot often referred to as flows, where habits can thrive because progress feels satisfying and attainable. The key to maintaining this state over time is choosing tasks and challenges that align with your natural talents. It's making the process more enjoyable and less forced. Clear uses the example of two athletes to illustrate how biological wiring can determine the areas where one naturally excels. Marcus, who has fast-twitch muscle fibers, will thrive in sprinting, powerlifting, and other short-burst activities. Caleb, on the other hand, has slow-twitch endurance muscles, which make him more suited for marathons, long-distance cycling, or swimming. If Marcus were to force himself into long-distance running, he might eventually succeed, but it would feel like grinding glass. Similarly, if Caleb tried to rapidly build muscle mass for strength sports, he would likely struggle endlessly. The point is not that talent is everything. Rather, the path with the least friction, the one you are most likely to stick with, is usually the one that matches your biology. James Clear insists. You don't need to be the best at everything. You just need to find your game and master. This mindset is revolutionary. Liberates you from the endless cycle of battling your weaknesses or envying others' strengths. Instead, it encourages you to build a habit system around who you aren't, who you wish you were. Ask yourself, what comes naturally to me? Which activities do I feel energized instead of drained? What do I seem to learn more quickly than those around me? The answers to these questions point you toward your areas of opportunity, your personal field of play. In that space, building habits feels more like building momentum than fighting misery. Clear delves even deeper by discussing how personality, not just biology, shapes behavior. He references the Big Five personality traits: openness to experience, creative, to curious; conscientiousness, organized, responsible; extroversion, outgoing, energetic; agreeableness, compassionate; cooperative; and neuroticism, sensitive; anxious. Each trait can predict the kinds of habits that will be most successful. For example, someone high in conscientiousness might thrive with planning systems, checklists, and order. A highly extroverted person would likely do better joining a fitness class than working out alone. Those high in openness might prefer creative journaling or regularly switching up workout routines. Meanwhile, someone high in neuroticism may benefit most from soothing, structured rituals that bring predictability to their lives. The main takeaway? Don't fight your personality, design your systems around it. Your habits need to match you, not some idealized version of who you think you should be. One of Claire's most important ideas is that habits are not about having something. They're about becoming someone. However, he cautions that you can't become anyone. You can only become a fuller version of yourself. When you create habits that reinforce your core strengths and natural inclinations, they become second nature because they feel like home. For instance, if you're introverted, your habits might center on quiet reflection, deep work, or solo creative projects. If you're creative but disorganized, you might benefit from flexible routines, visual reminders, and minimalist systems. If you're analytical, your best path might include habit tracking, data logging, and system optimization. Sustainable growth happens not when we bulldoze over our personalities, but when we build with them. Clear points out that two people can adopt the same habitat while one thrives. The other might drown. The difference often isn't in the amount of effort they put in, but in the fit between the person and the habit. It's like trying to build a house using tools that don't fit your hands, a hammer that's too big, a dull saw, a wobbly ladder. Eventually, you'll give up. But if the tools are just right, if the process flows with your instincts, you can keep building effortlessly. The right fit turns struggle into rhythm. To help readers tailor their habits effectively, Clear provides a 3-step roadmap. First, explore widely. Don't assume you already know what works best for you. Try out different habits, track your reactions, and notice what feels natural versus what feels forced. Second, refine by feedback. Keep the habits that uplift you and discard those that drain you. Use real data, your mood, energy levels, and productivity as your internal compass. Third, double down on strengths. Once you find something that clicks, don't hesitate, lean in. Don't feel guilty for choosing ease. Feel proud that you're designing your life for long-term success. As Clear puts it, the greatest threat to success is not failure, but boredom. When habits match your strengths, they stay interesting and sustainable for longer. Of course, Clear is careful not to suggest that talent alone is enough. In fact, he explicitly warns against relying solely on natural ability when you can't. Win by being better? You can win by being more consistent. Talent may give you a head start, but systems are what help you cross the finish line. If talent counts for 20%, then consistent, well-designed systems make up the remaining 80%. This is why the most successful performers aren't just talented, they outpractice and outsystem everyone else. They know that while talent might open the door, only reliable systems can keep it open. In closing, Clear offers a powerful insight. The key to building lasting habits is not to outwork everyone. It's to outdesign them. This means that success doesn't come from sheer willpower. It comes from alignment. Your success isn't hidden in someone else's perfect schedule or productivity system. It's embedded in your own nature. Your job is not to change who you are. Your job is to build a life that works with who you already are. When you do this, habits stop feeling like a struggle. Instead, they become a reflection of your gifts, your temperament, and your true path. That is where greatness truly begins. You don't have to be the most talented person in the room. You do need to discover your strengths and then build a system that honors and enhances them. Because the truth about talent isn't that it limits you. It's that it gives you a starting point. And where you go from there is entirely up to you. Chapter 19. The secret to results that last. Make it a part of your identity. This chapter. James Clear takes us deeper than ever before, beyond all the strategies and techniques for building better habits. Up until now, we've explored how habits function, how to make them obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. We've seen how our environment and cues shape our behavior, how tiny changes compound into massive improvements over time, and how systems tend to outperform even the most ambitious goals. But now Clear invites us to look beneath all of these ideas to the very core of lasting transformation. He writes, "The ultimate form of intrinsic motivation is when a habit becomes part of your identity. This is the most profound insight in the entire journey. Because no matter how clever your system is, or how clearly you articulate your goals, if your identity remains unchanged, your results will eventually snap back to match it. That's why long-term change isn't just about adopting better habits. It's about becoming a better version of yourself." Clear introduces the concept of the 3 layers of behavior change. These are outcomes, such as losing weight, writing a book, or earning more money. Processes, which include the routines and systems you put in place. And identity, your deepest beliefs about who you are. Most people try to change from the outside in. For example, they might say, "I want to lose weight," an outcome, so they start going to the gym, a process. But internally, they still carry the belief, "I'm not athletic," identity. Eventually, that belief wins. Because behaviors that contradict our self-image are difficult and sometimes even painful to sustain. However, when you reverse the process and start with identity, something powerful happens. You might say, "I'm becoming a healthy person," identity. That belief then supports the process. A healthy person moves daily. As a result, you naturally experience the outcome. I lose weight. Now, your habits are flowing with who you believe you are, not against it. This leads to the key idea behind identity-based habits. As Clear puts it, the goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to write The goal is to become a writer. This small but powerful shift from doing to being changes everything. You're no longer performing behaviors just for short-term results. Instead, each action becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. One salad is a vote for I'm a healthy person. One morning journal entry is a vote for I'm a mindful person. One push-up is a vote for I'm someone who moves. One thank you note is a vote for I'm a grateful person. Each vote reinforces that identity. The more votes you cast, the stronger your belief in that identity becomes. To build identity-based habits, Clear offers a simple two-step process. Step 1. Decide the type of person you want to become. Don't just focus on what you want to achieve. Define who you wish to be. Ask yourself, what kind of person could achieve this goal? Who is the type of person that does these things consistently? What beliefs would that person hold? For example, if you want to write daily, identify as a disciplined storyteller. If you want to quit smoking, say, I'm not a smoker. If you want to learn languages, become a curious learner. Choose an identity you can fall in love with. Step 2. Prove it to yourself with small wins. Every habit you perform is a vote for the identity you're building. You don't need a perfect track record, just a majority of votes. Sure, you might miss a workout, eat something unhealthy, or waste a few hours now and then. But as long as your overall trend favors your new identity, it will begin to stick. One of the most powerful insights Clear offers is that belief drives behavior. He writes, once you believe something about yourself, you act in alignment with that belief. This can work both ways. Negative self-identities often become self-fulfilling prophecies. If you believe I'm bad at math, you'll avoid practicing it. If you think I always quit things, you may unconsciously sabotage your progress. If you tell yourself I'm just not disciplined, you may stop even trying to organize your life. But when you shift your identity, change begins from the inside out, not just in what you do, but in how you see yourself. Identity-based habits make these beliefs visible, real, and tangible. Here's a hopeful truth. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Your identity is not fixed. It's not a label you're stuck with. Identity is a process of sculpture slowly revealed by your habits. Think of yourself as a statue waiting to emerge from the marble. Every habit is a chisel strike, revealing a little more of the person you're becoming. Just like in sculpture, consistency matters more than intensity. You don't need grand gestures, just small, steady strikes. Day after day, Clear also explains how many of our identities come from stories we tell ourselves over and over. I'm shy. I'm disorganized. I can't cook. I always procrastinate. But these stories are not facts. They're narratives. And the beautiful thing about habits is that they can rewrite these stories. When you meditate, you're becoming calm. When you clean, you're becoming orderly. When you show up, you're becoming consistent. So instead of obsessing over results, ask yourself, what story am I reinforcing today? What story do I want to reinforce tomorrow? Of course, identity change doesn't come easy. Old identities tend to cling to us, especially when they are tied to emotions like pride, pain, or safety. Letting go of beliefs like, I'm the funny one who always drinks, or I'm the rebel who doesn't play by the rules, or I'm the overachiever who never rests, can feel like a loss. But beyond that discomfort lies freedom, the freedom to be more authentic, healthy, creative, and calm. It takes courage to let go of who you've been. But with habits, you can shape who you become, one choice at a time. In closing, Clear offers a powerful formula. Identity plus system equals results that last. Without identity, your system feels fake, like a costume. Without systems, your identity is just a wish. But when combined, they form a self-reinforcing loop. Identity gives your habits a direction. Habits give your identity proof. This is what real transformation means, not just reaching goals, but evolving into someone new. So what will you build? Not just a better schedule, not just a cleaner home, not just a new job or morning routine, but a stronger identity, a deeper belief, a truer version of yourself. Because when you cast enough votes for being kind, disciplined, resilient, and creative, you don't just act like that person. You become them. And this This is how habits shape destinies. Final reflection and thematic analysis of Atomic Habits, a mirror to your life, and so our journey through Atomic Habits reaches its close. We've walked chapter by chapter through James Clear's thoughtful, often profound exploration of human behavior. We've seen how habits, those quiet, invisible routines, can build us up or break us down, one small act at a time. This is not a book about hacks. It's not a motivational speech. It's a mirror held up gently, so we can see ourselves clearly, not to judge, not to shame, but to ask, who am I becoming, and who do I want to become? The core truth. Small habits, big impact. Let's return to the book's most powerful premise. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Goals are momentary. Systems are lasting. Motivation is fleeting. Environment shapes action. Discipline is important, but identity, who you believe yourself to be, that's what truly endures. Change not by chasing intensity, but by embracing consistency. We become powerful not through giant leaps, but through small, steady steps. Each habit is a vote. Each repetition is proof. And eventually, you look in the mirror and see someone new, not because the world says so, but because you know you've earned it. The psychology beneath the Practice Clears framework is deeply rooted in behavioral psychology. Without ever becoming academic, what makes it brilliant is its simplicity, not in a shallow way, but in a refined way. His 4 laws of behavior change, cue, craving, response, reward, don't just explain what we do, they give us tools to reshape it. Every law works like a lever. Make it obvious, gives reshape your environment. Make it attractive, gives reframe rewards. Make it easy, gives reduce friction. Make it satisfying, gives close the feedback loop. This isn't theory sitting on a shelf. Meant to be used, lived, tested, integrated. The emotional undercurrent, identity but beyond strategy. Atomic Habits carries an emotional truth. Because behavior change is never just about routines. It's about belief. It's about healing. It's about letting go of the self that holds us back. That's why the book's final chapters strike the deepest. True behavior change is identity change. You are not just forming a habit, you are forming yourself. Every time you show up to create, choose to rest, forgive yourself, take a small step forward, you say, I am worthy of change. I am someone who takes care of their future. I am building something better, starting with me. Literary craft and narrative elegance. James Clear writes like a guide sitting beside you, calm, assured, never rushed. He doesn't shout, he nudges. He doesn't promise you'll change overnight, only that you can, if you give small things time. What's masterful is the structure. Each chapter is crisp. Self-contained and actionable stories are woven throughout, from Olympic athletes to business turnarounds. From surgeons to artists, complex psychological principles are made human and practical, and the entire arc moves from systems gives to identity gives to transformation. This narrative design mirrors the very process of habit change. Start from action, build consistency, then transform the self. Broader context and cultural impact. Atomic Habits wasn't just a bestseller. It became a movement. Why? Because in an era of overwhelm, burnout, and endless hustle culture, this book whispered something radical. You don't need to do more. You just need to do a little better. It gave permission to slow down, to zoom in, to build lives from the ground up with intention and patience. It also subtly challenged the cultural obsession with big wins. Not one ox growth minus 1% daily improvement, not dramatic transformation, quiet evolution. Not heroic sprints, humble systems. That message resonated with millions because it felt real, timeless wisdom from a modern voice. At its heart, Atomic Habits doesn't offer new truths. It rearticulates timeless ones in a modern voice. Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Lao Tzu taught, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." James Clear reminds us, every action is a vote for the kind of person you wish to become. This is old wisdom made new again. And now it lives in thousands of lives, routines, and quiet daily choices across the world. The journey ahead yours to shape, so what now? Now is where the story leaves the page and becomes part of your life. You won't remember every framework or every rule. You may not follow everything perfectly, but if you remember one thing, let it be this. Every small habit matters because it becomes part of who you are. Start with one push-up, one page, one deep breath, one kind word. Let that be the seed. Let it grow. The rest, the clarity, the momentum, the strength will follow. You've walked this far. Now take one small step and let your identity rise. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Atomic Habits by James Clear. If it's helped you see yourself and your potential a little more clearly, then the seeds of change are already planted. Till next time, sleep well and keep building the life you quietly believe is possible.